The story opens with our boy Kim Han-ul getting called up to the stage like an absolute Sigma. He has been waiting for this moment for his whole life. An official hands him his rank E hunter license, and he salutes it like a soldier receiving a medal. Because for being the low-rank trash, this guy genuinely put in the work, grinding through every bit of monster knowledge he could find. All that effort finally felt like it was paying off, but his ugly fate knocks right at his nuts, and the official says he made a mistake. The license gets ripped right in front of him. Rank E does not even count as an official hunter. Bro's entire world collapses in nanoseconds. The official explains that knowledge means absolutely nothing without proper stat rankings, and those words burn straight into his memory. A small curse slips out of his mouth. 7 years ago, he already gave up on this dream once, and now his backup career is about to fall apart too. He is completely desperate because the game that has been keeping him fed is getting shut down. A final notice pops up confirming the game's servers are closing for good. His side hustle has been streaming a monster defense game where players recruit monsters to fight off other monsters. But underneath that simple idea is a brutal, complicated strategy system. Upgrading units matters a ton, but the success rate is genuinely awful, and the worst part is that a single death wipes out all your progress completely. That's why everyone calls it a trash game. The balance is a mess, and weak units can somehow take down strong ones, which made him fully convinced the developer must be some kind of sadist. Even so, our Sigma somehow mastered this impossible game and became a veteran streamer because of it. This game was his second shot at making money. Now that shot is gone too, and bro might have to sell his balls to meet both ends. Today is his final stream, so he greets his tiny audience like always. Someone asks about his hunter career, and he admits he technically is a hunter, though he hesitates because the truth is he is just a failed rank E washout. He changes the subject fast, announcing that since today is the game's last day, he wants to try one final challenge. A massive wave of monsters is about to hit a castle, and he is going for wave 700, a level nobody has ever cleared. Hearing this, his viewers start chipping in to fund this last attempt. He hits start while internally wondering what the point of any of this even is, but he still feels nervous. Wave 700 kicks off. A portal opens and monsters pour out in an endless wave, clearly designed to test the absolute limit of his defenses. He summons an archer Goblin who fires a glowing arrow that lands a hit on the front monster, but the unit takes a counterattack and screams in pain. A notification confirms the unit just got wiped out, and he grits his teeth because that was an expensive unit to lose. His summoned monsters are getting completely overwhelmed, and he knows that if the entire horde rushes him at once, it is basically a death sentence. For now, he focuses on the threat directly in front of him and sends out his Succubus queen to guard the entrance. That is when something distracts him at the worst possible moment, because a massive three-headed monster roars its way through and breaks straight past their defenses. The queen has to retreat and regroup, but the monster is too fast, and its brutal final hit lands clean. Sure system notifications keep confirming units dropping one after another. Wave 700 is way stronger than he ever expected, and his strongest summons start falling apart one by one. Every unit he spent so long raising gets wiped out in seconds. A massive explosion signals that his loss is basically locked in, and with no defenses left, only his castle is still standing, completely exposed as the final target. He can do nothing but watch as his last line of defense finally crumbles. Monsters flood into the throne room, but sitting alone on the throne is a single armored figure. A system message pops up saying this is the first time someone has challenged Wave 700, so the final lord will be awakened. And our boy is completely confused because the message keeps appearing, locked entirely on the hottie sitting there with her eyes closed. Just then, this 1110 armored baddie wakes up and our boy's brain instantly blue screens. Our boy cannot believe what he is seeing, because the Lord has actually risen. She stands completely alone against the entire horde, which has never once happened across hundreds of failed attempts. He looks genuinely confused about what is even happening right now. Her eyes burn bright red and a golden sword slices through the air. Our boy is shocked to see monsters getting split clean in half from a single brutal swing. The Lord faces down the massive army below and, ignoring every single warning, leaps straight into the middle of the horde, dropping in like a golden comet. The impact creates a fiery explosion, and monsters get launched backward from the shock and the pain. She lands with her sword, and another devastating slash tears through the chaos as the elimination counter keeps climbing. An elite monster drops instantly. This absolute diva moves like a streak of light, her weapon glowing with insane power, and the kill count keeps stacking higher as golden light fills the entire hall, cutting through everything in its path. Our boy just stands there speechless at the sight of something this impossible. The Lord exhales, gathering up every bit of remaining power, and slams her foot down hard. One final massive burst of strength gets released, and she seems to channel every monster she has ever fought into this single last attack. A wave of notifications keeps confirming the massacre happening on screen, and she single-handedly clears the entire battlefield. She ends up standing completely alone on a field covered in monster corpses. A system message announces victory over Wave 700. Back in his room, our streamer is absolutely shocked because he genuinely had no idea the character that had been sitting dormant this whole time was actually this strong. But he checks the chat and it is completely dead silent, until one message finally pops up from viewer 1, a viewer who has not said a single word in 5 years. The viewer thanks him for waking up their lord. Our boy ignores the weird message at first, but the viewer writes again, swearing loyalty to his leadership, and then viewer 1 just vanishes out of nowhere. He sighs, assuming his only loyal viewer was just some troll messing with him, but then his eyes go wide because a swirling vortex of energy bursts straight out of his monitor. Ian light spins with impossible power and he gets knocked clean out of his chair, landing flat on the floor in total shock. His eyes reflect a terrifying new reality as a system window explodes with light and he realizes this is a full-on reawakening. He remembers being told once that he was too weak, and now he is being handed a rare second chance at gaining real power for someone who has been underestimated his entire life. This is a genuinely brand new beginning. He grabs his streaming mic for one final broadcast to his audience, announcing he is heading back into the hunter world. A new day starts and he takes a deep breath because the reawakening is completely real. He checks his status, Kim Hanul, but even after this reawakening his main status window shows 0 changes, which makes him incredibly curious. His hope returns when a second notification pops up unlocking details on his brand new skill. The summary gives him 2 options: make a contract with the Lord or talk with the Lord. Since he has no idea what either one actually does, he just picks randomly. He chooses to make a contract with the Lord, but right before the skill activates a red warning flashes up, telling him he doesn't have the required objective to meet that condition. Our boy gets cooked harder than his failed hunter career. A soft glow from his monitor gives him another idea, and he decides to interrogate the one viewer who sent that strange message earlier. The moment he restarts his stream, that viewer pops up online immediately. After locking the stream into a private one-on-one chat, Hanul starts firing off the important questions he genuinely wants answered. Since this viewer appeared right at the exact moment of his reawakening, Hanul is convinced this person knows something. Without wasting time, he asks straight up whether viewer 1 knows anything about his reawakening. Shockingly, the viewer says yes, explaining that Hanul has always known reawakening is a phenomenon completely outside human control, and maybe whatever entity is behind the screen is the one who helped bring him back. Hanul asks why this is even happening, why some unknown being would bother helping a failed gamer get a second chance. The mysterious entity answers simply that the Lord chose him. That is the entire reason. Their master gave him this opportunity because Hanul is the one who woke the Lord up in the first place. The entity reassures him that all the confusion currently filling his head will gradually fade with time, and that the new skill he received is just a small thank you gift from their master. Hanul stops the interrogation and starts focusing on figuring out how to actually use his new ability. The skill titled Conversation with the Lord has a cooldown attached, meaning he has to wait before using it again. He accepts that but demands an explanation for why his other skills are locked behind some kind of paywall. The mysterious entity realizes its mistake and quickly fixes it by depositing 50 gold directly into Hanul's system wallet. With that money, Hanul can finally try out his skill and solve this mystery on his own terms. Once its job is done, the entity says goodbye and exits the stream. Suddenly, a system notification pops confirming 50 gold has landed in his account. This brand new currency finally lets him activate the deal with the Lord skill, and instantly a massive digital shop appears, showing a long list of purchasable monsters. When he checks his wallet though, the only unit he can actually afford with his pathetic 50 gold is a slave goblin. Everything else costs way more than that. The most expensive character on the entire list is the Lord herself, priced at 11 digits, which is totally out of the league of our poor guy. Hanul figures this system probably works the exact same way as his old game since the window looks identical. A sly grin spreads across his face because he realizes he doesn't need to be a physically strong hunter to become a top tier 1. He can just let his summoned monsters do all the heavy lifting for him. While thinking about gold, something clicks in his head. Monsters block monsters. Players had 2 ways to earn money: clearing dungeons or hunting monsters and selling their loot. If that same mechanic applies in the real world, he just needs to kill monsters to gather the gold he desperately needs. The big problem is his actual physical stats are currently in the gutter, way too weak to even hunt the lowest tier slime. With no other option, he confirms the purchase of the slave goblin. A blue ball similar to a Pokeball containing his slave goblin appears in the real world. The scene shifts to a busy Hunter Association building, where Hanul comes in to officially register as a solo rank E hunter. After the receptionist pulls up his new file, she finds 4 jobs suitable for a rookie hunter. Hanul carefully compares all the options and ends up picking the one that seems least suited to his weak physical condition: a goblin extermination mission in a remote village tucked behind some mountains. The officer immediately warns him that the area is completely out of reach for emergency assistance, meaning if anything goes wrong, he will be entirely on his own. Our Sigma picks the suicide mission like a true Rock Lee. If he can't be the strongest, he'll be the most experienced dead guy. When he arrives at the remote village, the client who posted the request comes running straight at him. The old man is genuinely grateful that a real hunter actually accepted his request. Still, the old man looks unsure whether a skinny kid like Hanul can actually handle these vicious creatures on his own. Appreciating the old man's sincerity, Hanul gives him a confident smile and assures him he will not let these goblins keep terrorizing the village. As he heads into the forest where the goblin nest is located, Hanul runs into a sight he did not expect. Instead of wild, chaotic creatures running on pure instinct, the group of goblins is just chilling by a river, drinking water like a bunch of regular people on a lunch break. Ignoring how weird that is, Hanul opens his inventory and pulls out his brand new familiar still sitting inside its blue ball form. Channeling his inner Pokemon trainer, he quickly tosses the ball straight at the goblins. It lands right in front of them, leaving them completely confused. For a split second, nothing happens at all, and Hanul completely loses his shit because the ball apparently failed to activate his unit. Sensing hostility from the humans standing in front of them, the goblins flash their sharp claws and charge straight at him, ready to tear him apart. Knowing he has zero other options, Hanul braces himself to fight bare-handed. Instead of running, he clenches his fist ready to throw one desperate counterpunch. But right as one of the goblins is about to sink its claws into him, the system finally activates. His summoned goblin appears in the most dramatic way possible, bursting out of thin air in a burst of energy and immediately slamming the attacking monster with a massive club. Getting a close look at his summon, something suddenly clicks in Hanul's head. Back when he first started streaming Monsters Block Monsters, the very first monster he ever got was a basic slave goblin. Over time, he loaded that low-tier monster up with god-tier gear until that original trash unit turned into an absolute monster capable of soloing 100 waves without any backup at all. He had named that goblin Gono. Looking at his familiar's stats now, he immediately recognizes something familiar, because this goblin is wearing the exact same top-tier A-rank gear he had spent ages grinding for in the game. That solidifies his belief that this really is his Gono now alive in the real world. Without any hesitation, Gono just goes feral. He tears through two frontline goblins with brutal ease, ripping through them like nothing. A third goblin, apparently smart enough to sense danger, immediately turns and tries to run. Unfortunately for that fleeing goblin, Gono is wearing the Raven Swingbeat shoes, making him move like an absolute blur. In an instant, it splits the last goblin in half before it even gets a chance to scream. Hanul just stands there frozen with his jaw fully on the floor because he never truly understood how genuinely terrifying Gono was until he saw it happen live in the real world. Once the threat is over, it walks back toward its master, and out of nowhere, Gono suddenly pulls the cutest possible expression, basically looking like a puppy asking for head pats as a reward for a job well done. Once again, Hanul is left completely stunned because he never expected to witness this kind of adorable side from a monster. A system notification pops informing him Gono's current affection level sits at 20 out of 100, and that hitting max affection unlocks a brand new skill. Hanul, who usually approaches everything as a rational gamer and even hesitated to touch his summon at first, immediately drops to his knees and hugs the goblin like a long-lost sibling he just reunited with. Getting back to the actual mission, Hanul realizes there is a pretty big problem on his hands. The goblin corpses are not dropping any loot at all, so how exactly is he supposed to collect gold here? Luckily, Gono already understands the mechanic completely. The familiar hops from one corpse to another, plunging his hands straight into their chests and pulling out their life essence in the form of a dimly glowing mana stone. A mysterious blue energy portal appears nearby, and Gono casually tosses the stone straight into it. In exchange for 3 low-tier monster cores, the Lord Castle of Illusion immediately deposits 30 gold into Hanul's account. Everything finally makes sense now. Monsters do not drop coins directly, you have to extract their mana stones and exchange them through the system. Hanul shows his affection toward Gono once again for figuring out the mechanics so quickly. With the gold secured, he gets ready to gather physical proof to complete the mission for the association. But apparently those 3 goblins were just the warm-up. Suddenly, a massive commotion erupts from deeper in the forest. Thudding sounds shake the ground, growing louder by the second. Huge trees get torn apart and crushed into splinters as a giant creature emerges. It is an ogre. The moment Hanul sees it, he immediately starts questioning every single decision he has made in his life. A monster that size should only ever appear in a rank B gate or higher. There is no logical reason something like this should be hanging around a rank E mission area. But something else catches his attention. The monster is breathing heavily, and its body is covered in fresh wounds. Clearly the result of a brutal fight it just went through. Even so, injuries are no reason to underestimate a boss-level threat, and the situation gets even worse when a red warning pops up on the system, telling him Gono's summon timer has only 3 minutes left. The loyal familiar steps forward completely fearless despite the fact that his opponent is roughly 4 times his size. Gono glances back at his master with a confident look, almost asking for Hanul's trust. Activating the Raven Swing Beat shoes, the goblin blasts forward at top speed straight toward the giant. The ogre roars and swings a massive tree trunk. It rips straight out of the ground, using it like a baseball bat to smash the tiny annoyance attacking it. But Gono is way too fast. He leaps high into the air, adjusting his position mid-jump to build up maximum momentum, then drops down like a meteor, aiming his club directly at the ogre's head. The ogre panics and raises both arms to protect its vitals, but Gano does not let up. The sheer pressure from the attack becomes too much for the creature to handle, and a horrifying cracking sound comes out as its arm bones shatter and ribs crush completely from the brutal impact. Pushing his strength even further, Gano releases a massive shockwave that sends thunder-like vibrations rippling through the entire forest. The impact is so strong that Hanul actually gets dragged back several steps just trying to stay on his feet. In the end, the ogre gets completely obliterated by that insane burst of kinetic force. Hanul stands there absolutely shocked watching this showdown of raw power, and he immediately runs over to celebrate the win with a little victory dance completely overflowing with excitement. With only 3 seconds left before the summoning time runs out, Gano frantically grabs a massive mana stone from the ogre's chest and hands it over to Hanul, just in time before the familiar dissolves back into a little blue ball and vanishes. That leaves our guy standing there holding a high-quality monster core like he just wins a lottery. He does not even know he has entered. A mysterious portal appears right on cue to collect the reward, and when Hanul tosses the low mid-tier mana stone into it, the system immediately credits him a clean 100 gold, bringing his total up to 130 gold. But the system is not done being generous yet, because since this is the first monster our boy has officially defeated, he receives a premium gacha ticket as a bonus reward. Believe before celebrating though, the sound of snapping branches echoes as a fully armed group of awakeners runs into the area. The moment Hanul recognizes the woman leading them, his heart misses a beat. This 1110 diva is Yoon Sua, from Team 2 of the famous guild Pongbake Guild. This is the team that was fighting the ogre earlier and weakened it before it escaped. Hanul has just walked in, finished their hunt, and taken the kill. Boshua glances at the ogre's corpse and genuinely can't figure out how this one man defeated it alone when 3 of her B-rank hunters struggled against it. She concludes the man in front of her has to be at least A rank. Her attitude shifts noticeably, and she extends her hand reintroducing herself. She can actually sense that a high-level entity is drawn to this man, which irritates her because she can't understand what makes him so special. She asks if Hanul hunted alone, and he gives a vague answer that confirms it without offering details. She explains her team was fighting the ogre before, and she's relieved Hanul stopped it before it caused further damage. Hanul casually says he got lucky. Safa knows immediately that's impossible, because nobody kills an ogre by luck. After a moment of thought, she makes a decision that surprises everyone. She agrees to hand over all the mission rewards from the ogre hunt to him, but she adds one condition, and holds out her phone and asks for his number. Hearing this, our single R's boy gets really shocked at his post-nut lottery luck. The scene shifts to Hanul reuniting with the village chief, who is deeply grateful. The old man leads him down a path to the training monument, mentioning it brings good fortune. Hanul is in a good mood and decides to summon the treasure chest right there and do his gacha pull. His phone buzzes with a message from Sua arranging payment and expressing interest in him through her personal phone number. Hanul doesn't think much of it though, because he's fully focused on the treasure chest in front of him. Handai activates the chest and dazzling light pours out, but he doesn't get the armor. What drops instead is a pair of unique tier glasses that boost all his stats by 5 points each and come with an attached skill called Sage's Eye. The skill lets him read detailed information on any target, including abilities and attributes usable twice per day. In the game universe, a single unique tier item outperforms 3 or more E-rank items combined. He puts the glasses on and the stat boost and unique effect immediately impress him. Then the system slams a warning about an incoming wave attack. Notifications keep flooding in and our guy stands frozen. Wave 701 will begin in 10 minutes and he has absolutely no idea how to prepare defenses. When he looks at the game screen, the image he conjures is a hellish army of monsters, swarming him. The system confirms that if he fails to repel the invasion, the Castle of Illusions will be destroyed along with all his power. Hanul gets a vision of cities burning and the world collapsing in total destruction. A blue gate spins open like a portal, identical to the ones from inside the game, and Hanul cannot understand why he is being forced to participate in something where failure could literally end the world. The system has already decided the round will begin in 10 minutes. Realizing he cannot keep overthinking this and has to act immediately, Hanul sets his goal to stop the monsters and reminds himself that at its core this game has always been straightforward. It is a defense game where the objective is to prevent monsters from reaching the castle, essentially a tower defense experience with the brutal difficulty level of something like Hollow Knight, where strategy is everything from unit deployment timing to utilizing every available defensive structure and item. After factoring in all the variables, the best possible tactics for the situation have to be assembled. That is just how this game works. Hanul's controls now function like a touchscreen, and the first thing he does is check his monster inventory for units he can deploy. It turns out he has 5 monsters available, 4 goblins and 1 ogre, and interestingly, he can use these creatures in this mode without needing to officially recruit them first. He also checks whether he can use Sophie's power, and unfortunately, that is locked and completely inaccessible. He then tries to add more troops using his gold, but the system blocks him too, preventing any changes once the wave notification has appeared. Hanul is starting to feel like the system is deliberately pulling out his power cables one by one. Wave 701 consists of the Wyvern Count along with its elite unit called Dragon Children, a 6-star monster with an additional force of 61 dragons. A 6-star opponent is not a trivial threat because star rating reflects combat power and potential, and when the gap between star ratings is too wide, one side simply gets demolished. The problem is that Hanul now has to face a 6-star monster with a tiny force of units that are all at 1 star. Whatever he tries, the result looks obvious because even a single dragon would crush everything he has, and he has no extra gold or additional monsters to work with in his strategy. Then the system gives him one unique advantage. He can choose one defensive structure and one item to be distributed to all his troops. On the surface, this sounds like a massive help, but Hanul is irritated because the system clearly expects him to clear this stage under these conditions anyway, which is genuinely insane. But since he is a veteran of this notoriously difficult cursed game, he has to work with whatever he has. He begins manipulating the environment and looking for a way to stop the wave based on all his accumulated experience, moving as fast as possible with 8 minutes left, calculating every element available until the countdown hits 15 seconds. Once all his preparations are complete, the timer hits 0. Hanul is ready to face the wave. The wave launches with a fury as the wyverns flood the sky with their sheer numbers and lock onto the target, which is the castle. The army is led by the Count himself. From the opening of the wave, the wyverns slam into the barriers, aggressively trying to force open a gap. The Count grows visibly irritated that his monsters have not broken through the defenses yet, while more wyverns join the assault trying to shatter the reinforced structure. But all of this is actually playing directly into Hanul's strategy because the very first thing he has done is activate the infinite barrier, boosting the defensive rating by a full 100 against all incoming attacks. The barrier itself cannot actually be destroyed, but it comes with a specific condition attached, which is that it can only be used when the player's monster count is below 2-star rank. Even with the barrier successfully deployed though, one of the wyverns unleashes an absolutely massive fire breath that damages and nearly shatters the whole thing in one shot. The only reason the barrier holds at all is thanks to its special regeneration effect, which is the one lifeline keeping everything from collapsing immediately. But there is still a massive problem lurking in the system, because while it is true that each individual attack only reduces the barrier's durability by 1 point, if all 61 dragons attack simultaneously, the durability will drop below half in an instant. That is the critical gap in the system, and our boy has already figured out a solution for it. The solution is spam clicking, so our boy thinks of tapping like OSU pros while his goblins get cooked. Every single click adds 1 point of durability back to the barrier, which means the only limit on how fast the barrier can recover is how fast his fingers can physically move. Hanul's hands start hurting almost immediately, but this is the most reliable method to guarantee the barrier stays completely intact through the assault. The bigger question is how he is ever going to actually defeat monsters that are essentially operating at a divine power level, and the answer turns out to be surprisingly simple. The barrier can reflect attacks from the wyverns and deal 1 point of damage to them per hit, and normally a goblin would have absolutely no way to hurt a wyvern under any circumstances. But thanks to a special A-rank item our boy has equipped, the damage can bypass any rank difference entirely, meaning even a 1-star goblin can chip away at a 6-star enemy. The wyverns start weakening one agonizing point at a time, and one of them actually notices the goblin casually chipping away at it and gets furious about it, but cannot do a single thing about it no matter how angry it gets. If things continue at this pace, Hanul calculates it will take roughly 60 full hours to wipe out the entire enemy force, which means the hardest part of this whole insane battle is simply maintaining the barrier recovery process for 60 consecutive hours. The endurance war has officially begun. The Bahiol Sigma keeps tapping the screen without stopping and starts quietly wondering who is going to give out first, himself or his goblins. The Count's forces and Hanul's forces reach the bottom as both sides grind each other down. After some time, Hanul starts to feel genuinely tired, and when he reaches for some water, his body suddenly goes cold at the realization that he is not even allowed to interact with anything outside the game. In short, our boy has to endure everything with 0 breaks, no water, no food, nothing except pure gaming focus until this is completely finished. He acknowledges that an ordinary person probably would have lost their mind from the desperation alone. But for Hanul, this is honestly just the beginning of a real game session. One of the dragons suddenly goes berserk and unleashes a massive fire breath that destroys a large portion of the barrier's durability in one go. And instead of panicking, our Chad leans into the tension because this kind of pressure is exactly why he loves this game in the first place. 2 hours have already passed and there are still 58 hours left to go. The penalty for failure is catastrophic since the entire world could be destroyed, and bro is out here doing a 60-hour hardcore raid while the wyverns are throwing a fit. 12 exhausting hours pass, and he still hasn't reached the halfway point of wiping out the enemy force. His plan stays simple, chipping the enemy down 1 point at a time with careful clicks. Eventually, the first monster falls, and the numbers start dropping steadily as he holds the defensive line. 56 remaining, and a new day begins. Hanul runs the entire battle from his room while the enemy numbers keep dropping as his troops fight on. The sky is full of wyvern forces darkening the horizon, and the elf lord on the battlefield watches his soldiers fall one by one with a cold face. Explosions move through the enemy lines and the kill count keeps rising without stopping. Finally, only 2 monsters remain, and the tired Hano allows himself to relax a little. Then a serious warning flashes on the screen. A single goblin sprinting across the battlefield gets hit by an attack from above. The last wyvern dives in for the kill, builds up a powerful attack and shoots 2 fireballs straight at the Lord's barrier. The barrier's strength hits 0 and the shield breaks. Hano realizes in shock that this has happened because he has fallen asleep. If the castle takes even 1 hit now, everything is over. He recognizes the goblin right away. It's Guno. The last 2 enemies charge forward together. Guno leaps at the now unprotected Lord and goes for the final hit as the impact shakes the entire battlefield. The virtual world collapses as our boy stands alone with a system message confirming his win. He can barely believe it's actually over. He shouts a victory cry loud enough to shake his entire room and relief washes over him. But the tiredness hits him right after and he passes out on the spot. When he wakes, his head pounds with pain, but something feels different in the air. Reward messages wait for him along with loot from the monsters, though he wonders what any of these items will even do for him in the real world. A new skill is waiting to be unlocked, and he's met 2 requirements for it. One involving his talk with the Lord. The skill name sounds strange enough that he decides not to think too hard about it for now. Then the final reward gets announced, and bright light fills the room as power glows from a mysterious item he stares at with genuine confusion. Just then his phone lights up showing 7 missed calls from our baddie. The scene shifts to the towering Pongbait guild building where Yoon Suyuk, the second in command of the S-Rank guild, wonders out loud how an E-Rank hunter could possibly have killed an ogre, completely sure our guy is faking it. His sister brings up the chance of a reawakening, but Suyuk immediately rejects it and calls the idea a lie, which surprises her. Shortly after, our guy arrives at the lobby looking visibly late and guilty, hurrying over to the 2 siblings who have been waiting. He bows and starts to explain why he couldn't answer their calls, but before he can finish, a cold voice cuts him off. Suyuk gets angry about our boy ignoring his sister's calls for 3 full days and pretty immediately turns on her brother and tells him to stop. That's when our guy finally figures out that he is Sui's extremely powerful older brother. The tension settles once this beauty accepts his explanation and gets straight to the point, offering to handle the ogre body he killed. Our Sigma Desophile filing an official report with the Hunter Association. Late the association office, a staff member listens to their account while this hottie gives a witness statement confirming our guy killed the ogre. The staff member explains they're short on proof and Sumyuk's mood darkens in the room, pushing the staff member to quickly add that for high-ranking monsters, official checking is required. They'll need to measure our Sigma's stats using a mana measurement tool. Our baddie has already guessed at a reawakening but couldn't check his stats herself and has been worried enough to personally back him up, which is why they end up using this other method. Bro looks confident and immediately agrees to the measurement without hesitating. The tool first checks one of the other members showing a D-rank result. Then it's our Chad's turn and Hanul is looking nervous while her brother sees this as the perfect chance to find out exactly what our guy's potential really is, especially given the attention from a constellation. If Bro has no real ability, he simply isn't worth anyone's attention. Our Sigma places his hand on the giant measurement stone without faking anything, thinking to himself it's been a long time since he stood in front of a device like this. Like any other hunter, his mana was measured once 7 years ago. The tool activates while everyone waits. Liu Suyuk notices a specific reaction and then the measurement finishes. Our boy's rank gets announced as SS-Rank, a genuinely shocking result that immediately draws everyone's attention. Even our guy didn't know about this until he received the final reward from his mission, a new skill called Lord's After Image. The skill adds the stats of the strongest monster from the previous wave directly to the player for 30 minutes once per day, meaning he can borrow the Wyvern Count's stats for that window, exactly what he just did. With that huge boost, his power jumped to an extraordinary level, making the skill a fit for the measurement test, since his strength temporarily matched an S-rank hunter. Nobody catches on to the trick at all, and to the outside world he simply looks like a rookie S-rank hunter. Both siblings are stunned and even Suyu compliments our guy. After the measurement finishes, our Sigma gets officially recognized as the one who defeated the ogre, with a staff member confirming the proof is enough. He thanks both siblings for helping things go smoothly and turns to leave. But Suyuk stops him and formally invites him for coffee as the guild's second in command. A big enough invitation to draw attention from everyone nearby. Our guy responds with a bit of attitude and turns it down, saying if he needs guild information, he can just ask pretty directly. He walks away, leaving Suyuk standing there annoyed and speechless. When our boy gets home, his face is already on the news. A live broadcast announcing his official rank registered at B rank, since the association doesn't allow jumping more than 3 ranks at once, regardless of actual ability. Even on his own channel, some viewers are already talking about the game he plays while our Chad casually pretends the person they're discussing has nothing to do with him. The audience guesses wildly about the mysterious S-rank hunter bold enough to turn down Suyuk. Theories start flying about which major guild he might join. When a rumor spreads that he actually rejected the offer entirely, the chat blows up again. Our guy announces new content related to the hunter world. Though the audience doesn't seem interested at first, he builds interest by asking viewers to recommend a dungeon for him to clear, and promising to live stream the entire raid, which shocks the chat since that's against the rules. Hunters are bound by secrecy agreements stopping them from leaking dungeon information, so Bro clarifies he'll only show the completion certificate and describe his experience afterward, satisfying everyone and getting them excited about possibly exposing guild secrets through a single streamer. One viewer suggests the Mad Dragon S-Nest while another sends a 50,000 won donation, recommending the Giant's Kitchen Dungeon. A third comes in with a 1,000,000 won donation begging him to cut off the Spider Queen's legs in Spider's Forest. The donation amounts keep climbing until our Sigma is overwhelmed, asking the chat to calm down before staring at the single biggest message yet, 10,000,000 won. The entire audience goes silent for a moment from the size of it. It seems like he's landed an enormous big spender as a fan, but the donation actually comes from a sovereign sugar daddy. Please in which dungeon this particular viewer wants. Our boy asks for the suggestion and it comes back as the deepest part of the Garden of Meditation. The chat treats it like a death trap since nobody has ever successfully cleared that dungeon. The garden has 3 main areas: the entrance zone, the central lake, and the deepest section. The entrance stays fairly safe for hunting, but the danger jumps sharply at the lake, and nobody knows what waits in the deepest area since nobody has ever made it past the lake. Only Suhyuk has gotten that far, and even he hit his limit and turned back without going further. Now our guy is being asked to do what the most powerful hunter in the country couldn't, which by his own thinking is almost impossible. The big donor adds that Hanul doesn't actually need to clear the whole dungeon, just reaching the deepest section would satisfy him. He promises extra help if our Chad genuinely clears the whole thing. The chat pushes back hard against this crazy request, worried their favorite streamer is about to die for content. Our Sigma fully admits how dangerous this is but figures reaching the deepest part and surviving is a fair enough goal. And since the big spender is also offering real help, he eventually yells he's going to do it with more energy in his voice than probably makes sense, immediately heading to the Hunter Bureau to make it official. At the Bureau, the front desk worker processes his solo trip request, and when she hears he's aiming for the deepest section, she doesn't hold back, warning him very clearly this is the most dangerous thing a single person could attempt there. Our boy doesn't flinch at all and just asks her to push the paperwork fast. She first schedules him a week out, but he pushes for sooner, pointing out a solo trip doesn't need a whole team to coordinate. He ends up with a slot for the very next day at 2 in the afternoon. The moment he steps outside, 2 interesting people approach him wanting to talk. Myung-Han and So-won are the team leaders from the guilds Aegis and Seneri. He instantly figures word of his reevaluation has already spread through the hunter community faster than gossip. Both guilds are interested in recruiting him, and being among the 3 biggest guilds in Korea means the offers on the table are far more attractive than anything Guild Pongpek has ever offered him. Our guy has exactly zero interest in sitting around talking about guild ties though. He walks away from both, giving almost 0 Fs, since in his mind joining any guild would just hold him back when the dungeon is the only thing that matters right now. Meanwhile, he then calls Suhyuk and casually explains his plan to reach the deepest part of the Garden of Meditation. The exact place Suhyuk himself never managed to reach, which is exactly why he's calling the S-Rank Hunter to ask for whatever information he has. Suhyuk's first reaction is basically why would he share anything, but then Bro drops that he has a secret method for clearing the dungeon and it lands like a punch to the gut. Our Sigma adds that if he succeeds, he'll publicly say the dungeon was cleared with the support of Guild Pongbaek, a smart offer giving both sides something to gain. Suhyuk agrees even though he's deeply curious what this mysterious method could be, and our boy confidently confirms that he absolutely has a way. Suhyuk tries to give another offer, asking our guy to join their guild, and he shuts that down right away without a second thought. When Suhyuk tries playing it cool, acting like he's the only one interested, our Chad casually mentions that Guild Aegis and Sun Arai have already reached out too, and it hits Suhyuk like a truck since it means the other guild leaders are already moving. Hanul keeps the pressure on, hinting Pongbaek's offer isn't exactly making him feel valued, and Suhyuk eventually gives in, handing over what he actually called for in the first place. He then makes one thing very clear, that he has no information about the deepest section specifically, and the dungeon layout may have changed over the past year. Our boy is fine with that and decides to work with whatever he can get. Hanul arrives at the meeting spot wearing his glasses, and the men already waiting spot him right away. A baldy named Guangsu introduces himself as a member of Guild Bulgul, and Bro greets him normally. But Guangsu has already done his homework on our Sigma from the re-evaluation results, and isn't impressed at all. He's the type who has never worked alongside an S-rank hunter before, and is already annoyed that our guy signed up for this trip alone. He makes it very clear in the rudest way possible that his guild has its own mission, and has absolutely no plan to offer any help, and our boy calmly agrees to those terms without even blinking, since he doesn't care. The bald man walks off acting like an S-rank title means nothing in actual combat, while our Chad stands there surprised these people are already this touchy on day 1. Still, he admits he's actually lucky to have gotten in at all, since a dungeon at this level normally needs a minimum team size, and at least a month of advanced booking, and these guys have been waiting a long time while he walked in on day 1, so the bad feelings make a certain kind of sense even if they're still ridiculous. Our guy quietly turns on Sage's eye to check their rankings, and the result is exactly as weak as expected, because every single one of them is basically bottom tier and would be completely useless to him in the deeper sections, meaning this group is probably only good as bystanders at best. The bald man turns around and asks why bro is smiling, and he just says he remembered a funny joke, which sends these touchy guys into attack mode. They instantly take it as an insult and look like they want to throw hands. Before anything can get worse, the staff opens the dungeon gate for the raid. Green lightning crackles through the air as it swings open, and the hunters are told to get in fast before the gate becomes unstable. This is our Sigma's very first time entering a real dungeon in this world, so he steps through with curiosity about what's waiting inside. The system screen shows basic information like dungeon capacity per raid, and right at that moment, the Sovereign's helper sends a good luck message along with actual in-dungeon support, even slightly changing the dungeon landscape as a bonus. The whole team gets inside, and the bald guy instantly says something is deeply wrong because the place looks almost unrecognizable compared to what the entrance should look like. It hits him with something almost like a bad memory from his past, while the rest of his teammates stand around confused why there's suddenly a lake right at the entrance when there's not supposed to be one. Some of them know exactly what this dungeon normally looks like at the start, and this isn't it. For our boy, this is also his first time. But even he knows dungeon entrances are supposed to be fairly easy to get through, and based on everything Suyup described, this place looks nothing like what it should. Then it clicks for him. The system officially drops a new briefing and welcomes all the hunters to the lakeside, sending everyone into panic, scrambling for answers. The system lays out the mission called the Pygmallet Massacre, the goal being to protect a group of pygmallets from their attackers until nightfall. Success means earning a way across the lake and access to the deepest section, but failure means every single person dies on the spot with no exceptions. A result that hits the C-rank hunters like a bucket of cold water and makes it very clear they're not ready for this at all. Even Guangsu's own teammates start telling him they should just pull out, but when they try to open their status window to leave the mission, they immediately discover there's no exit option available because they're completely locked in. The bald guy has been trying to find a way out this whole time, and he's stuck just like everyone else. The current pygmallet count stands at 130, but 2 have already been killed, bringing it down to 128, and the numbers are still dropping. Guangsu starts panicking and turns to the only S-rank hunter in the building, practically begging our Chad for any guidance at all and asking for even a single useful hint to help them survive this. Our Sigma calmly explains he also doesn't fully know what's going on here, but the moment he mentions having some information about the lake, Guangsu's eyes light up and he immediately starts begging our guy to share everything he knows, the entire group suddenly agreeing to help in whatever way they can. Our boy laughs at the irony of these same people who were cursing him out 5 minutes ago now desperately asking for his help, then lays down one single condition for working together, that he'll share every piece of information he has, but in return they must follow his orders without question until the mission is done. This condition is a direct challenge to Baldy's command since it basically means bro takes over as the one in charge. But with the system announcing the pygmallet count keeps dropping and time running out, they really don't have time to argue about who's in charge. Guangsu knows they're done if they don't accept, so the bald guy finally gives in and agrees to the plan, though he sets his own condition that if the plan fails, our guy has to take full blame for the outcome. Honestly, not even a fair demand considering he's the one doing them a favor here. Guangsu listens carefully and agrees to hear the explanation first before making any final judgments, and our Sigma lays out the full breakdown of the terrain in great detail, mapping out the lake area clearly and explaining the large central lake flows outward into the surrounding forest in a web-like pattern covering the whole area. Even the bald guy is surprised by just how detailed and exact this information is, and our boy simply explains he has a scouting skill, enough to genuinely relieve Guangsu, since having someone like that on the team means they're not going in blind. The layout also matches what Suyup described earlier, though what's actually happening behind the scenes is that bro is working off the special map given to him by the #1 donor in the stream, a reward from the castle, so he never had to go digging for any of this himself. The mission itself is simple enough on paper: protect the pygmallets from being killed, but that naturally means finding the pygmallets first before they can protect anything. All of them are spread across the swamp area with 8 total nest zones needing coverage and defense. So once locations are confirmed, the plan is simply to move fast enough to stop attackers from wiping out any single zone before the team can reach it. Our guy's overall plan is to gather all the pygmallets into one central spot to make defending easier. That's the basic outline of the plan, and our chat immediately tells everyone to start moving since the pygmallet count is actively dropping even while they're just standing around doing nothing. The urgency is real, and Guangsu's group wastes no time running to find the different nest zones, though the bald guy can't help wondering what our Sigma is planning to do himself. Our boy simply explains he'd be handling the pygmallets on his own, and the guild leader accepts that, leaving him to it. It's the best decision he makes all day since it gives bro exactly the room he needs to work. Our boy's actual plan is to scout the area using the lake map. He has already noticed that this zone holds a hidden mission with a special reward attached, more interesting to him than the main goal. Before getting started, he needs to confirm 2 things during the scouting phase. He wants to figure out what the hidden mission actually is and identify exactly which monsters are doing the killing, since multiple monster types are in the area and he needs to confirm the actual cause. While scouting, he spots a pack of lizardmen who look genuinely dangerous. It surprises him a little, and he immediately understands that these are the ones responsible for killing the pygmalets. This makes his plan harder because even though individual lizardmen are only D rank, moving in large groups gives them a team boost that makes them a totally different kind of problem. Realizing he has no business getting into a fight with them right now, he tries to slip away quietly, but two complete fools show up out of nowhere talking about him rudely and walking straight towards him, putting him in an awkward spot. One keeps running his mouth right up until the exact moment his head is cleanly cut off by a monster leaping out of nowhere and killing him on the spot. Blood sprays everywhere as more lizardmen show up from every direction. The other man watches his friend get killed, immediately loses his temper from rage, and starts throwing punch after punch at the monster in a furious attack, hitting it again and again through what he thinks is his finishing blow, only to find it does zero damage at all because the lizardmen gain a team boost when grouped together. It turns these D-rank creatures into effective B-class fighters through 2 stages of growth. With that boost active, the monster just rips the man's arm clean off his body while he screams in pain as the creature raises its weapon to finish the job. Then out of nowhere, Guno appears and blocks the killing blow. The strong goblin summoned at exactly the right moment to even things out. The C-rank hunter from Guild Bogiel can barely process what he's seeing, having just been saved by a servant goblin. Our guy appears from behind, very calmly reminding the man he had specifically asked them to stay in their assigned positions inside the dungeon. The bulky guy explains he's simply gotten lost and accidentally wandered into this section, so our Sigma tells him to fall back and treat his wounds, while he himself will handle the lizardmen. He then orders Guno to immediately clean up the monsters around them, because time is running short and he still has a hidden mission to find somewhere in this dungeon. Guno uses Raven Swing and shoots through the lizardmen at a speed they can barely follow, taking down one monster after another before they even understand what's happening, while our boy stands off to the side like Trump at Chelsea match, doing nothing yet ready to take credit. He is fully aware that despite the numbers, the lizardmen have no chance against his goblin. Then one lizardman apparently uses every bit of brain power it has at once, and realizes attacking Bro directly might be the only way any of them are going to win this. The creature leaps straight at him, trying to take him out in one shot, and our Chad immediately uses Lord's After Image to borrow the Wyvern Count's stats from the previous wave, giving himself C-rank level strength for 30 minutes. He swats the monster away like it's made of paper. By the time he deals with it, Guno has already finished cleaning up every last lizardman in the area. Hunnel praises his goblin servant and gives him a pat. It's a little awkward for our guy to pat a goblin instead of smashing a baddie, but the goblin immediately goes shy and their bond jumps up another 10 points. Our guy sells the mana stones he's collected, pocketing the gold easily, and because this is his first time selling lizardman stones, the castle gives him a bonus reward, and another gacha ticket, which he decides to hold onto until after the mission fully wraps up. Guno then taps his wrist, signaling his summoning timer is almost up, and just as our Sigma starts thinking about how to handle that, the goblin suddenly takes on the look of a creature deeply obsessed with gold. Just then, the system shows a notification explaining he can pay 5 gold for every extra 10 minutes of summon time. Our boy finds this deeply annoying because the system never misses a chance to drain his wallet, but knowing he has no real choice, he pays up without further argument. Before he can think much further, a strange rumbling sound fills the air and suddenly a huge herd of pygmalats comes stampeding directly at him. Sweat appears on his face as he tries to figure out how to control a mob that size when they're supposed to be the easy targets. Guno steps in and saves the situation again by directly talking to the pygmalets, getting their attention and excitedly explaining on their behalf just how sincerely our guy wants to protect and save them all. The pygmalets immediately burst into tears after hearing this emotional speech and come running toward Bro to show their thanks, and just like that, he finds himself leading a herd of monsters through the dungeon, like an extremely confused shepherd. After handling that completely unexpected situation, he continues scouting alongside his goblin and keeps clearing out any lizardmen that dare come close. But when he tries to sell another mana stone, the system flashes a red warning telling him the castle's funds are completely used up and he can no longer sell or collect mana stones until more funds come in. Our Sigmas hit the limit for the number of lizardmen the castle can process. He is shocked that the castle can actually run out of gold like that. Now knowing there's a hard limit on how many monsters he can manage, he stops hunting lizardmen entirely, since it's just wasting his time. He counts the pygmalats he's personally saved, landing on around 60, and when the system shows the total, it comes to 70 saved overall, meaning the entire guild combined has rescued exactly 10 pygmalats, while our boy alone has handled 60 of them. Then something changes with the pygmalats. They start acting strangely, and the creatures that were seen as easy targets suddenly all sprint forward together, leading everyone toward the center of the lake, and the dungeon system announces the attackers have stopped their hunt, and night has officially arrived. Everyone receives congratulations for successfully protecting the pygmalets through the massacre phase, and since the save count has reached 70, the hidden goal is automatically cleared as a bonus. The members of Guild Bogiel at this point are completely at their limit, literally screaming at the dungeon to just let them out of this nightmare already. But right as everyone assumes it's over, a brand new notification appears announcing the trial of meditation is about to begin. A massive shimmering wave of water suddenly surges toward all of them, and just as it's about to hit, the pigmalets the hunters have saved turn serious out of nowhere and leap forward to shield their protectors, leaving our Chad and Guno standing there with their mouths open like a drooling sirit. The system explains the pigmalets are returning the protection they've received as a thank you, and our guy can barely believe that creatures written off as easy targets this whole time actually have this kind of hidden strength. It suddenly makes complete sense why the mission to protect them existed from the beginning, and he starts wondering to himself whether saving more pigmalets would have made the protection even stronger. To test that idea, he glances over at the other hunters, and sees most have only managed to save 1 or 2 pigmalets each, with the Bulgale guild leader in particular barely hanging on, and his pigmalet running on absolute fumes alongside him, while the rest of his members are in rough shape. Seeing that worries Bro, and he immediately starts thinking about how to get everyone out alive. Right at that moment, the system drops another notification, finally revealing the hidden mission he's been looking for this whole time. It requires him to find and stop the true source behind the trial, also confirming that defeating the monster causing the event ends the trial right away without waiting out a 10-minute timer. Our Sigma doesn't waste a second, puts on his glasses, turns on Sage's eye and quickly spots a presence at the exact spot the system has pointed to. Focusing his vision further, he confirms the creature is a named monster called Zen Karuk, smart, dangerous, and able to use abilities like Cataclysmic Wave and Storm. The fact that this is a named monster makes our boy nervous, since named monsters are a special class of creature with unique abilities nothing else has, but he forces himself to stay calm, reminding himself hidden missions are never going to be easy from the start. When Guno gets excited and starts positioning himself to charge at the monster hiding behind the massive wave, our guy immediately stops him, telling him he'd be sitting this one out as a spectator, since without natural water resistance he'd be in danger fighting in a lake setting. He makes the terrain itself a bigger threat than the enemy for his goblin. Hanwul opens the monster summoning shop to call in a new unit, picking an ogre berserker from the trading list specifically because ogres have natural water resistance built in. But a concern comes up right away because, unlike Guno, this ogre has no equipment at all, meaning it will certainly get crushed by a monster as powerful as Zen Karuk. Realizing he needs something to boost the ogre's abilities, our Chad pulls out his premium gacha ticket, and despite the bad odds, he decides to use it right there. He hopes whatever comes out will give the ogre enough of an edge against Zen Karuk. The ticket activates and golden light pours out, making his eyes go wide. A rush of excitement hits when he realizes it's an S-rank item, but that excitement immediately turns to confusion since the item doesn't look useful in combat. The water currents are getting stronger by the second, and our Sigma has no choice but to summon the ogre right away and put the item on it. But the moment the item is placed on the ogre, the creature falls face first onto the ground. At the same moment, a panic scream comes from one of the Bulgale members nearly drowning, and without hesitating, Bra rushes over to help. His face makes it clear he's disappointed with how this is going. He grits his teeth and accepts he's probably going to have to handle everything himself now. On top of all that, his after-image effect only has 12 minutes left before he turns back into a meaningless E-rank hunter, with nothing to show for it. Despite everything, our boy chooses to focus on saving the others first, but even with his temporarily boosted stats, the situation pushes him hard. His grip on a tree starts slipping, and he nearly loses his hold entirely, when the violent current suddenly begins calming down. When he looks up, he sees an ogre standing firmly in the water, wearing a Harry Potter hat. This rank item turns a dumb ogre into a nerdy wizard, and it starts speaking in a dramatically heroic tone, asking its master if he's hurt anywhere. Then it bows formally and introduces itself as a humble servant with the most polite manner imaginable, not what anyone expects from an ogre. Our guy stands there confused, since from his view, all he's done is place an S-rank item on the ogre's head, that item being the Hat of Archimage Ganondorf, a special item designed to boost intelligence-related stats and in theory able to turn even the dullest creature into a genius, though it's never crossed his mind that pushing an ogre's intelligence to extreme levels would produce results quite this dramatic. Still trying to process it, he asks his new servant how it's suddenly able to speak clearly and hold a proper conversation, and the ogre flexes proudly, announcing with excitement that the hat his master gave him has transformed him into an entirely new kind of ogre. After saying that, it bows deeply, humbly asking for orders, and our Sigma says before giving any orders he needs to confirm one thing first, which the ogre immediately agrees to. He asks if the monster can now use magic. The ogre answers yes with confidence, explaining it has already enchanted the log it's holding, exciting our guy since things are finally starting to tip in his favor. Seizing the moment, he orders his new servant to push forward through the raging current while he follows close behind. The hat-wearing ogre immediately forces its way through the impossibly strong water without complaint. Our boy even gives the ogre a name right there on the spot, Odolf, telling him he's counting on him. The moment Odolf hears his new name, his cheeks go red and tears start streaming down his face. He screams he will give everything he has and even sacrifice himself to repay this honor before charging forward through the spray and cutting a path that leaves our guy confident they're going to make it. This sudden turn makes Zen Karuk uneasy, realizing someone has broken through its magic, and while it believes whoever did this is no ordinary mage, it stays convinced breaking through its barrier won't be possible. Lunolf reaches the barrier and stops, reporting the obstacle to our Chad, who tells him to just keep hitting the same spot over and over and keep up steady pressure until it breaks. Odolf begins logically explaining why a layered magic barrier of this kind can't be destroyed through repeating hits alone, but Bro cuts him off mid-explanation, telling him to stop overthinking it and just smash it with raw strength instead of relying purely on magic, which makes no sense to Odolf, but he obediently follows the order, hammering the barrier without stopping. He starts swinging at it like he's playing baseball. Zenkaruk feels increasingly nervous as the barrier weakens, but stays convinced an ogre can't possibly break through a catastrophic wave barrier, because it's impossible for one creature to master both physical strength and magic at the same time. And while still talking about how unbreakable its barrier is, the whole thing suddenly shatters into pieces. The lizard guy is stunned, muttering that only an ogre who is also a mage could have done something like that, something that was supposed to be nearly impossible. He stares at this ogre in a wizard hat, unable to believe its magic seal has actually been broken, wondering if this is some kind of ogre shaman. And our Sigma asks the creature if it's Zenkaruk. It doesn't bother answering and locks its full focus on attacking instead. He assumes the ogre shaman has already burned through most of its mana and will have the upper hand against an already weakened opponent. Just as the lizard is about to launch a powerful attack able to kill anyone instantly, our guy tells Odolf to try a ranged magic attack to interrupt it, picturing his ogre will throw a fireball or something similar before charging in. What Odolf actually does is throw the log he's holding directly at Zenkaruk. The lizard doesn't register that an actual physical log is flying toward it, and proudly declares mid-speech it has already won, and that no magic can get through its barrier. He has predicted every possible attack, right up until the log hits it, and its entire confidence shatters like glass as it collapses in total defeat. Haniel turns to his servant, pointing out that what he's just done looks exactly like throwing a regular stick, and Odolf immediately apologizes, admitting he hasn't yet learned any spell worth actually using in combat. The scene shifts to the Pongbak Guild headquarters, where the leader is being pushed to move fast and recruit the newly emerged C-rank hunter before rival guilds get to him first. But he keeps brushing it off, feeling no rush about chasing an S-rank hunter. He considers Haniel a loser, and is comfortable in the fact that he already has plenty of hunters under him. Lucky inside the dungeon, Zenkaruk has been officially defeated, and Odolf carefully collects the Mana Stone, bringing it to our boy who praises his servant's hard work, while Odolf humbly insists none of it would have been possible without his master's guidance and support. The two of them almost argue over who deserves more credit for the win, before our Chad moves on and sells the special soul stone to the castle. The castle system tallies up his rewards, which include a special zone development permit, one extra gacha ticket, and a modest amount of gold slightly reduced since the castle is running low on funds. On top of that, our Sigma now has the ability to deploy Zenkaruk as a unit when defending the castle against future waves. He decides to head back and save the detailed review of his rewards for later. When he returns to the group, the only person still awake is a blue-haired beauty from Guild Bogale, who immediately asks if he has managed to save everyone, then thanks him with sincerity for what he's done. Our guy asks about the condition of the other guild members, and Pretty explains they're all alive and already getting proper treatment. Shortly after, their leader Guangsu comes forward wanting to speak with our boy. He approaches in a way that briefly looks like he's about to swing at him, but then he does something unexpected, dropping to his knees to thank our Sigma on behalf of his entire guild for saving everyone's lives. He also apologizes for how he'd acted when they first entered the dungeon, and Hano finds the whole thing hard to believe, never expecting the guy he'd written off as all muscle and no brain to be capable of a sincere apology. He reaches out a hand to help Guangsu back on his feet, telling him to get up and go take care of his guild members who still need him. The two shake hands while Guangsu's eyes fill with tears as he swears he will remember this debt and repay it someday. Shortly after, the system notification confirms the trial of meditation has been successfully cleared, and everyone is given the choice to either stay in the dungeon or continue forward into the deeper sections. Unconscious hunters automatically sent home, while the rest are free to decide for themselves. When Guangsu learns our guy plans to keep going, he pushes back hard and urges him to retreat for now. He suggests the group could regroup and come back later with better preparation. But when our Chad shows him his monsters and explains he has reliable teammates with him already, Guangsu goes quiet from shock. He finally understands why Bro has no plan to turn back, so he stops trying to talk him out of it. Everyone says their goodbyes and shows their thanks before leaving, while our Sigma stays behind to push forward and do what no one before him has ever managed to pull off. He made it all more impressive by completing the hidden mission on top of everything else. The dungeon system tells him an extra special reward is waiting for him beyond the standard ones he's already received. Yerare, the scene gets back to the guild leaders still being pushed from all sides to recruit the new C-rank hunter. Myeonghan and this busty baddie are both trying to explain why their supposedly strongest guild should be the one to bring our guy on board, while the leader keeps saying their guild is already dealing with enough internal problems. He also reasons that since our boy is officially still registered as a B-rank hunter in the system, recruiting him isn't particularly urgent. Then a notification hits him about a dungeon showing a red pattern, signaling a high chance of a dungeon break, and seeing the location is the Garden of Meditation, the exact dungeon Hanul has entered. The guild leader immediately decides to go there himself. Several hours later, he arrives at the dungeon location with his people asking for a status update, and the dungeon guard force explains the dungeon has turned, civilians already moved out, adding they will need Guild Pongbake's help to handle any potential emergency. Myung-hun immediately asks the status of the hunters still inside, and the man in the black suit answers 6 hunters have made it out safely, but 1 has entered the deepest section of the dungeon. Shortly after, the leader of Guild Aegis and the leader of Guild Samurai also arrive at the scene. Everyone is becoming intensely curious because this is the first time in history a single hunter has successfully reached the deepest part of that dungeon. All of them are trying to figure out who on earth could have pulled off something like that. Then the man in the black suit confirms the name, and it's our Sigma. Before actually pushing forward into the deepest part, our boy takes a moment to sort through everything the hidden mission has given him. The system breaks it down clearly. A challenger reward boosts every single stat by 10 points, and on top of that, a contribution reward adds another 5 to everything. Then comes the real prize, the actual hidden mission reward, which turns out to be the High Priest Dimensional Pouch, an A-grade item that immediately catches his attention. The system explains the pouch holds an entire hidden space able to store up to 100 kilograms of items. Looking inside, our guy finds 30 lizardman hearts, 30 pieces of lizardman leather, and 30 vials of lizardman blood, all extra materials that come bundled with the hidden mission. He calls it a sweet pull, and thinks a pouch like this is going to come in handy for a long time. Yet on top of that, there is one more item waiting for him. A special space development ticket. Our Chad immediately suspects what this is for since it sounds exactly like something he could use inside the monarch's castle. He decides he will try it out alone later once things settle down. With the rewards fully sorted, he figures that is everything taken care of, and turns his focus toward the real goal of finally heading into the deepest part of the dungeon. The gate creaks open right on cue. Our Sigma checks in with his team. Odolph confirms he is ready without a moment of hesitation, while Guno lets out an eager cry right beside him. The 3 of them step forward together, ready to push ahead. But the second they actually try moving, something feels completely wrong. Hanwha can't find the gate anywhere. It's like the thing vanished the instant they tried walking toward it. There of you, that is when a strange high-pitched squeal interrupts everything. A huge sparkly pink pig comes bouncing into view, making excited noises. Henel immediately recognizes it as Pigmallet, one of the Pigmallets they had protected earlier during the massacre. The pig keeps squealing insistently, and our guy quickly puts it together, and asks Guno if these Pigmallets are trying to lead them somewhere specific. Though without warning, an entire herd of tiny Pigmallets comes rushing past, and all of them launch straight toward the lake. Our Sigma is confused about why this group of pigs would suddenly sprint for the water, but he calls out to Odolph and Guno telling them to follow, since the Pigmallets clearly want to tag along. The Pigmallets launch into the air one after another, soaring overhead in a wave before crashing down into the lake below. Our boy and his team take off right behind them, the ogre swinging his massive log for balance, while Guno runs alongside keeping pace with practiced ease. The 3 of them dive straight into the water together, Odolph still gripping his weapon even underwater. The whole group sinking deeper as they follow the trail. The Pigmallets are cutting through the current. As they get down, our boy notices the Pigmallets swimming downward in a tight spiral clearly aimed at something below the surface. A bright light starts glowing from somewhere deep underwater, and our guy realizes with surprise that there is an actual gate hidden beneath the lake. Without the Pigmallets showing them this, he knows for a fact they would have wandered around aimlessly forever trying to find a way through on their own. He thanks them properly, and the little pigs squeal happily back at him in response. But the relief doesn't last long. A surge of energy rips through the water, and lightning power spreads outward with a strength that makes the entire situation feel a lot heavier all at once. Our Chad's mind flashes back to something important, remembering that even Su Yuk's own constellation had specifically warned him to stay away from this exact place. If a being that powerful bothers issuing a warning like that, it means whatever is waiting down here is genuinely dangerous, quite possibly more dangerous than anyone could have guessed. Our Sigma steadies himself and swims upward alongside Odolph, his expression hardening as he silently accepts that he might actually have to put his life on the line this time. The system pops right then, confirming that the challenger is officially entering the deepest part. A blinding flash of light swallows everything around him. Our boy's face twists for just a second. A scream tears out of him as the change hits hard, and then everything goes completely quiet. When he comes back to his senses, he is lying in a completely different setting. There is wide ground of green grass under an open sky, nothing at all like the underwater lake they were just swimming through moments ago. A rustling sound nearby startles him and he gets up on instinct ready to fight, only to realize it is just Guno standing there. He lets out a breath of relief and admits that the goblin scared him half to death and asks if he blacked out for a second while passing through the gate. Looking around at the grass, he stretches out in every direction in the open sky above. Something clicks for him. Our guy asks out loud if this place is the deepest part everyone has been talking about this whole time. The wind picks up around them and a soft glow begins forming in the distance, confirming that against every single odds stacked against him, our Chad has actually made it. The system finally confirms it, welcoming them to the Garden of Meditation, the deepest part everyone back home has been losing their minds over. A wide plain stretches out under a clear blue sky, which honestly looks nothing like what bro expected walking in. Guno lets out a curious sound beside him as the system prepares to explain exactly what they are dealing with. Just then, a briefing comes through in a cold voice. The Garden of Meditation is facing a crisis like nothing before. In a world overshadowed by death from a bad drought, this garden stands as the last paradise left standing, and countless invaders keep flooding in non-stop trying to claim it for themselves. The mission is to protect this final paradise, no matter what it takes. The goal gets even more specific. He needs to change the structure of the garden itself and use whatever powers it offers to fight off the incoming invasions. The second our Sigma hears that phrasing, his brain locks onto something familiar. This sounds exactly like the tower defense setup from his old game. Meanwhile, something else entirely is happening behind the scenes. The monarch's castle is actively stepping into the garden, providing a full bird's-eye view of the entire battlefield from somewhere far away. A hooded figure sends out a surge of power through the void. Its eyes are glowing like a single bright star, sending that overhead view directly into the field our boy is standing in. Back on the ground, a massive layout map appears in front of him, and our guy immediately notices the field shares a nearly identical structure to the monarch's castle he is already familiar with. Relief washes over both him and Odulf at the discovery, since this means he isn't walking into this blind after all. Argolsi adjusting his glasses with a confident smirk, our boy declares that if the mission is just another defense game, he is more than qualified to handle it. The system agrees and tells him to place the garden structures first to get ready for the incoming monster wave. He gets straight to work, turning on Sage's eye to scan the area and get a clear read on exactly what kind of forces he actually has access to here. The system flags the first option right away as a special structure that doesn't use up a placement slot, which already sounds promising. What shows up first is the World Tree's grass wall, a wall built from vines that live off the World Tree itself, with actual roots from the tree placed directly inside it. Whenever monsters get close, it sends out mana to physically block their advance. Right beside it stands the Ari Tree of Charm and Tears, a gorgeous cherry blossom tree that scatters pollen the second anything threatening approaches. Any monster that breathes that pollen gets charmed instantly and has its movement limited for a full 5 minutes. And then there is the carnivorous plant Zyra, which eats absolutely anything that wanders within a 1-meter radius of it without mercy. The system adds one more detail just to drive the horror home, confirming that anything swallowed by Zyra suffers forever trapped inside its roots before it finally dies. Our Chad stands there impressed, admitting out loud that these are genuinely strong forces, and that he could probably hold off an entire invasion using just these tools alone. Then a thought crosses his mind, and Bro wonders out loud whether he could take a few of these plants back with him to the monarch's castle permanently. The system shuts that idea down right away, confirming that the Guardian can't freely damage the garden in any way. Our Sigma sighs at the missed chance but shrugs it off, deciding he has a solid enough grip on his available forces to get started. Right as he is about to kick things off, a sudden notification interrupts him. The system flags the presence of an A rank or higher monster somewhere nearby. Our boy scans the area but doesn't see anything obvious at first until something catches his eye, a faint shimmer hiding low in the grass. He reaches down and grabs it before it can react. What he is holding turns out to be a small purple ball with a single eye, squirming uncomfortably in his grip. Our guy stares at it with confusion and asks what exactly this thing even is. The system pulls up the full identification, revealing it as a Beholder Sage, a named monster whose stats can't even be properly checked. It comes equipped with 2 skills, Snooping at level 1 and Baby Petrification at level 1. The Snooping skill lets the creature watch anyone without ever being spotted itself, and on the flip side it means no ordinary disguise can hide from its gaze either. Baby Petrification limits the movement of a chosen target the second the skill activates, though it conveniently doesn't work on anything above a certain rank. Hanel examines the squirming little blob with confusion, pointing out that the beholders he is familiar with are supposed to be massive creatures, nothing like this tiny thing currently struggling in his palm. He wonders if maybe it just hasn't fully grown yet. Either way, he figures since it is still a named monster, it should still be useful for something, so he tells Guno to take care of it while he sorts out shipping it over to the monarch's castle. The beholder struggles weakly against Guno's grip the moment our Sigma hands it over, but before anything else can happen, a brand new notification cuts through everything. An unknown constellation is suddenly demanding the Beholder Sage's freedom. Bro freezes and asks what on earth a constellation has to do with any of this. The warning repeats itself, and the mysterious constellation calls itself the Gardener of the Mother Goddess, yelling once more for our guy to release the beholder right away. Our boy realizes the constellation behind this dungeon is the same reason Suhyuk's constellation warned him away. When the Gardener of the Mother Goddess yells again, Bro spots his advantage immediately and holds the beholder up dramatically, asking if the little creature matters to them. The constellation confirms it does, and our Sigma smirks, reminding them they shouldn't yell at someone doing them a favor before threatening to destroy the thing entirely. That leverage works perfectly because the system announces the Gardener will offer a special mission in exchange. Yuri, the deal is simple. Keep the Beholder Sage safe until all waves end and Bro owns it forever. Our guy gets excited at how casual leverage just turned into a real mission with actual stakes. He holds the beholder up again and speaks to the constellation, saying he can finally feel some honesty now that there's a real deal on the table. The gardener agrees and lets out a visible sigh of relief once Manhwa releases his grip on it, then pushes him to start the mission immediately. Sigma agrees but asks one question first, wondering why they'd find a guardian when monsters this strong should be manageable for a constellation. The gardener explains they originally held off the invaders themselves using the Beholder Sage, but eventually hit their limit and needed a stand-in to take over. Brow connects the dots immediately about why the Beholder means so much to them, but then points out that if even a constellation admits to their limit, these monsters must be genuinely terrifying. The gardener corrects him, admitting the real problem isn't the monsters at all. They just find defense games boring and can't be bothered with them anymore. Our guy is thrown off by that admission but laughs it off, insisting the gardener just hasn't grasped the real charm in defense games yet, and that once someone truly gets it, they become incredibly fun. Then Bro's expression shifts entirely, a sly grin spreading across his face as he realizes how perfectly this works for him, since he's quite the expert in this exact field. He pushes his luck right away, offering that if the constellation sneaks him extra rewards, he'll happily teach them all the tricks of the trade while clearing the mission himself. The gardener responds by scratching their belly dismissively and flatly says they don't need anything like that. Our Chad gets annoyed at being brushed off so casually, and calls out to Guno, who immediately surges forward wrapped in blue flame, ready to back up his master's threat. That little show of force does the trick, because the constellation suddenly nods hard in agreement. With the negotiations settled, our Sigma finally gets down to business. The first wave hits and he lets the garden's defenses do their work, tearing through the invading monsters without mercy and ripping them apart completely. Once the dust settles, he turns toward the sky with a smug grin and asks the constellation if they watch closely enough to actually learn something from that display. He explains casually that if you set things up properly, defending becomes easier moving forward. The system pulls up the details for the 10th wave, revealing 3 Cerberus, 10 golden bees, 1 golden bee queen, and 5 iron golems, all incoming at once. Our boy holds up the Beholder again, and asks the constellation how exactly they would handle this themselves. The gardener responds with the same dismissive attitude, which makes our guy call them out directly, asking if they have any real plan to take this seriously at all. He pushes even further, wondering out loud whether the real issue is that they just don't know how to handle defense games. That comment lands exactly where it's supposed to, because the constellation gets annoyed and insists they could handle that much if they actually tried. The gardener actually submits a full layout plan this time. Our guy notes out loud that they're finally motivated to do this properly. Looking over the proposed plan though, Bro immediately spots the problem. He points out that cramming 20 Zerias right at the entrance all at once is questionable and asks if they're being serious. The gardener confirms that's exactly the plan. Our Sigma flatly declares that the tactic is completely hopeless as written. He lays out the fix right away, explaining that the Ari Tree of Charm needs placement alongside the Xeras because its pollen will stop incoming enemies and cover for Xera's lack of speed. But he doesn't stop there, pointing out that the Golden Bee Queen has full immunity to charm effects, and the Iron Golems are completely immune to magic, meaning the World Tree's grass wall won't stop them either. That leaves an obvious gap, and our Chad poses the real question, asking what they should use to tie down those 2 specific threats so Zyra can finish the job properly. The constellation tilts their head with curiosity, clearly invested now. Our guy holds up the answer with a confident smile, a tiny pea-shaped projectile. The gardener looks puzzled, asking what this is supposed to be. Our Sigma explains that the bullets from the peaweeds carry a sticky quality, and that's exactly what they'll use. The constellation pushes back, pointing out that the stickiness doesn't seem all that strong to begin with. Hanul concedes the point partly, admitting that 1 or 2 pea bullets probably wouldn't matter much on their own. But then he raises the real question. What happens if hundreds or even thousands of these things end up sticking to the same target all at once? With a confident smirk, he tells the constellation to watch closely and see exactly how these pea bullets can stop even the toughest monsters dead in their tracks. The wave hits and the plan plays out exactly as promised. The Golden Bee Queen and the Iron Golems both get completely buried under a non-stop storm of sticky pea bullets, pinned in place by sheer volume even though neither one was supposed to be stoppable by normal means. Zyra and the rest of the garden's defenses tear through the trapped horde without resistance. Our boy watches with satisfaction, calling out to the constellation and asking if they understood what just happened, pointing out that even something seemingly small can pull off something powerful when it's actually used right. He leans back satisfied, declaring that this right here is the true thrill in defense games. The constellation watches the whole spectacle with obvious interest, hooked despite themselves. Our Chad asks if they should move on to the next wave already, and the system answers right on cue, pulling up the details for the 25th wave. This time, the breakdown shows 1 giant Draken, a pack of 5 wolves, and 6 ghouls rounding out the numbers. Bro points out that this wave is set up differently, and turns the question back on the constellation, asking how exactly they would want to handle something like this. After actually thinking it over properly, the gardener offers up their own opinion for once, submitting a real layout plan instead of just shrugging the question off. Our guy studies it carefully and immediately picks up on the logic behind it, noting out loud that they've set things up specifically to herd all the monsters straight into the center, planning to lock down their movement using charms and P-bullets before wiping the whole group out in one combined strike. The constellation nods, confirming that's exactly the plan they had in mind. Our Sigma approves immediately, simply telling them good. Hell saw from there things start moving fast. The constellation takes our boy's earlier suggestion and sets up one entire side of the passage exactly the way he recommended, and Hanul responds with an enthusiastic thumbs up as the wave gets cleared without a hitch. Victory notifications start piling on top of each other in quick succession, confirming successful defenses against the 25th wave, then jumping straight through to the 57th and 62nd waves, one right after another. Our guy sounds impressed at the speed, asking what the constellation plans on doing for this next one. The gardener responds by carefully drawing up an entire layout plan completely on their own this time, putting actual thought and effort into it. Our Sigma looks the plan over and gives it his full approval, telling them this looks excellent and they should give it a try exactly as drawn up. The waves keep coming and the winds keep piling up right alongside them, but somewhere along the way something shifts. A massive change spreads through the constellation's whole state of mind, and Bro notices it right away, his expression flickering as the system flags that the mission itself is being changed on the fly. The constellation, completely unprompted, willingly offers to take over as the garden's actual guardian going forward. Our boy watches the whole thing happen with something close to feeling, and the system confirms the shift officially, changing the mission goal from straightforward defense over to coaching instead. A wide grin spreads across Hanul's face the moment that sinks in. He declares that this is perfect, announcing that from this point forward he's going to personally teach the constellation every single trick of the trade he knows about running a proper defense game. An entire half-day passes working through the constellation's brand new coaching mission, wave after wave passing under our guy's careful direction. The lessons keep piling up alongside the wave count ticking steadily upward through the 50s and 60s. At one point, our Sigma even throws in some unasked-for cooking advice, joking that for a chicken-type creature they should just roast the whole thing instead of anything fancier. Other times the feedback gets more detailed, like when he points out that the constellation completely misused the Ari tree's charm ability on a particular wave, showing them exactly what they should have done differently. Boy, the time the wave count hits 80, our boy admits that the constellation's work isn't too shabby at all anymore. The numbers keep climbing past 88, and eventually the system confirms a successful defense against the 99th wave straight through. Our Chad finally allows himself to relax, leaning back with a satisfied exhale. Someone nearby comments on just how far the constellation has come, impressed at how well things are going now compared to where they started. The constellation responds with a small satisfied shrug and a quiet smile, clearly proud of the progress despite themselves. The Guno lets out an excited cry, pointing toward the horizon, where the next wave of monsters is already gathering. Odolf chimes in too, speaking to our guy directly and noting that even he and Guno can tell how much the constellation's overall skill has improved over all this training. Our Sigma agrees, starting to say he thinks the constellation could probably handle this next one entirely on their own at this point, before suddenly cutting himself off mid-sentence. The system interrupts everything, announcing that the 100th monster wave is arriving soon. Tonsin spikes right away. The beholder reacts with visible fear, and even Guno's expression shifts into something far more serious than before. A massive shape begins emerging through the gathering storm, completely dwarfing anything they have faced up to this point. The system finally reveals the full breakdown for Wave 100. What shows up is a single entry, Behemoth ×1. The sheer size of the thing alone is enough to make the constellation panic, scrambling to throw together an entirely new layout on the fly in a desperate attempt to make up for it. But Hanul stays completely calm through all of it, telling the constellation it is alright, reassuring them that they have grown more than enough over all this training and that how fast they adapted alone has been incredible to watch. The constellation stops mid-motion and looks over at our boy directly, admitting that this particular monster looks too tough to take down using just the garden's power alone. Because of that, they have a different plan in mind this time, telling our Chad they are going to show him exactly how to take something like this down through direct combat instead. Our Sigma, Odolf, and Guno drop straight out of the sky together, falling toward the massive horned beast below with its glowing red eyes locked onto them. The constellation's voice rings out clearly, calling this our guy's final lesson and telling him to watch closely. They spot what looks like the perfect opening. The behemoth's movement freezes for just a brief moment, and they immediately seize the chance, calling for everyone to charge in together and finish the creature off in one decisive strike. But right as they commit to the attack, the behemoth's eye flares bright red, and it lets out a furious roar that shakes the entire battlefield. Our boy barely has time to react before small creatures start bursting directly out from the behemoth's thick fur, dozens of them at once. His confusion turns into alarm as he asks what these things even are. The system pulls up the identification right away, revealing them as blood fleas with unsettling agility and a blood-sucking skill at level 1. Bro can hardly process it fast enough, realizing that actual monsters are erupting straight out from inside the behemoth's own fur. Caught off guard, our Chad realizes with growing panic that he can't dodge properly anymore. He barely gets a curse out before Behemoth pulls a clown move and the swarm crashes into them. Odolf throws himself directly into the line of danger to shield his monarch. and gets devastated by the impact while Guno cries out in alarm at his friend's fall. But once the dust settles, our guy lets out a long breath of relief, admitting that's a close call. Odolph checks on him right away, addresses him with the nickname King of Kings, and asks if he is alright. Our Sigma confirms he's fine and thanks him for the save, at first relieved as he notes that fortunately these little fleas don't seem all that dangerous after all. But the moment the words leave his mouth, he freezes, sweat breaking out as he reconsiders. The swarm regroups and surges forward again in overwhelming numbers, and he immediately takes back that statement, admitting these things are actually dangerous after all. The fight turns into a brutal close-quarters run from there. Blood sprays through the air as Odolph roars and tears through the swarm. Both of them fight hard just to keep the fleas from completely overwhelming their position. Despite the chaos, Hanul can already tell something is wrong with their odds here. He admits out loud that the blood fleas individually aren't particularly strong on their own, but there are simply far too many of them for the three of them to realistically handle together. He wonders out loud if there is any other option left on the table. That is when something clicks for him. A notification chimes in confirming that the monarch's castle has just deposited 4,000 gold, payment that had been delayed earlier due to the castle's tight money situation back when he originally sold Zen-Karuk's soulstone. Our boy's eyes widen as he remembers he had that exact chunk of settlement money waiting on him this whole time. He immediately activates the deal with the monarch feature and declares it is time to bring Zen-Karuk back into the fight. A surge of energy flows through the air as the summon takes hold. The named monster's magic crackles to life. Our Sigma announces with confidence that he is about to wipe out these blood fleas in one single sweep, and the system confirms the summon of Lizardman High Priest Zen-Karuk. Zen-Karuk appears confused and asks where exactly he has been pulled into this time. Odo wastes no time addressing him directly, calling out for the High Priest to hurry up and use that one specific technique they both know about. Zen-Karuk asks which technique exactly he is even talking about. Our guy cuts straight to the point, tells him bluntly to just use that water spray attack he pulled out back during their earlier fight. Zen-Karuk reacts with a startled noise before pulling together a surge of raw power between his hands, and the system confirms the use of his signature ability, Tears of the Ancient God. A massive rush of water bursts outward in a sweeping wave, completely covering the entire swarm of blood fleas in one continuous surge that tears through them without resistance. Hanul watches the water surge tear through the swarm with visible satisfaction, calling out that the power feels weaker than what he personally experienced from Zen-Karuk back at the lake, but still more than enough to wipe every last one of these fleas completely off the map. Then he gives the final order and Zen-Karuk launches forward, and the water crashes down in one devastating wave. Hanul throws the guy a solid thumbs up. Zen-Karuk announces that this was honestly a piece of cake. Our boy appreciates the energy, but his attention has already moved on because the blood fleas being gone means only one thing remains. He looks at the behemoth, who just opens its enormous mouth and lets out a roar loud enough to rattle everything nearby. Ugly Monster is unhappy about being ignored. Hanul calls out to Odolph immediately and orders him to throw Guno at the behemoth's head. Odolph goes completely still, while Guno gives him an eye roll to question the logic in his idea. Hanul looks at both of them and says there is simply no time to explain, so just do it. The behemoth charges forward with another ground-shaking roar, and Guno activates Raven's wings at rank A. His body launches forward so fast that he becomes a streak of blue light cutting straight toward the creature. At the exact same moment, Hanul orders Zen-Karuk to wrap Guno in his water spray immediately, and Zen activates Tears of the Ancient God in its barrier form. A shell of dense water seals itself completely around Guno mid-flight. The behemoth does not even fully process what is coming before Guno makes contact, and the shockwave tears through the entire area. The creature lets out a shriek that shakes the ground beneath everyone's feet. Dulladry. Just then, the system announces that the trial of the garden has been cleared, and the Garden of Deep Water has also been fully cleared. Hanul thanks Guno, who chirps back, making it obvious that he enjoyed being used as a living projectile. But then something falls from the sky. A massive golden sword materializes out of nowhere and lands directly in front of them. Our guy instantly questions what on earth this thing even is. The system answers immediately, announcing that a question mark rank item is being issued as the final reward for clearing the dungeon. Hanul reaches out and picks it up. The system pulls up the full details, and our Sigma reads through the information about the Emperor's Vestige, a Z-rank item classified as a packed hand weapon. The description explains that the Emperor is an entity that embraces all, therefore this sword bearing the Emperor's name can contain anything, absolutely anything the user desires. Our boy immediately opens his inventory to check the Vestige copy skill mentioned in the description, and the system explains the ability works by inserting a summoning orb into the sword's groove to select and copy the monster's highest stat and one of its skills. That means with the right monster orb inserted, he could turn this weapon into whatever he needs for any situation. Just then, a strange shimmer appears in the air, and the system announces that the Earth Goddess's gardener is asking what he would like as an additional reward for clearing the trial so thoroughly. Our Chad turns toward where the voice is coming from, genuinely surprised since he didn't expect the constellation to offer anything beyond what they already agreed on, though he immediately starts thinking about what might be useful at this point. Our guy decides to push his luck one more time, offers up a proposal, where if the gardener sneaks him a little extra reward on top of everything else, he'll happily teach them all the tricks and strategies he's learned about defense games and mission planning for the upcoming challenges. The constellation agrees to provide one additional reward, something special that should help him even further down the line, and our boy instantly demands to share its authority with him. Our boy thinks about authority, which is a special power granted through a contract with a constellation. Anyone who obtains one gains overwhelming stats and unique abilities that greatly increase their combat strength. Our guy immediately asks for one. The gardener instantly slams a big no at his face. Hanul assumes the gardener simply does not want to make a contract with him, but that guy explains that Hanul's current condition makes it impossible for him to form a complete contract with a constellation. Instead, the gardener offers him two choices. He can either choose a different reward or accept a sponsorship contract. When Hanul asks what a sponsorship contract is, the gardener explains that it grants a weaker version of a constellation's authority. Hanul asks if he can use this authority without any special restrictions, and the gardener confirms that he can. Hanul carefully considers the offer. Even a weakened authority seems far more valuable than any ordinary reward because it still puts him on the path to greatness. He is Sargon, the first emperor of humanity. If the being before him truly is Sargon, then his standing among the constellations must be extraordinarily high. Hanul accepts the sponsorship contract. The gardener praises his choice and brilliant light engulfs Hanhao as the contract is completed. The authority flows into his body, granting him new abilities. Once the light fades, Hanhao checks his new power and is genuinely surprised because it granted him anything except a bigger joystick. Still, this authority is far stronger than he expected, convincing him that choosing it over any other reward is the right decision. The sponsorship contract is officially finalized, and the system confirms another reward. Ownership of the Beholder Sage is transferred to Hanul. The gardener says they will take care of the little purple sphere from now on before sending it away. Moments later, the system announces that the Garden of Meditation has been completely cleared. Hanul opens his status window and receives another wave of notifications that gives him greater pleasure than actual clapping. 4 conditions for unlocking the hidden skill. Conversation with the monarch have now been completed. He has defended against a monster wave, survived for more than 50 hours, spoken with a constellation, and earned a constellation's acknowledgement. With those requirements complete, the final condition is finally revealed. He must craft an S-rank or higher item using monster materials. Our Chad immediately thinks about the large amount of lizardman materials stored inside his dimensional pouch. Outside the dungeon, the gate suddenly erupts with violent energy. Red light spreads across its surface as powerful waves of mana shake the area, triggering emergency alarms in the monitoring systems. The reports reach Suhyuk immediately. He thinks there might be a dungeon break, so he quickly orders the support teams to prepare while calling his strongest fighters, including Sukhok and Suhyuk, and Sukyo, to the front. What began as a search for a missing rookie hunter instantly turns into a full emergency response. A moment later, red lightning spreads across the plaza. As the energy settles, our guy steps out of the gate, looking like a scripted copy of Jinwoo. Seeing this, the crowd feels relieved as word quickly travels that Hunter Kim Han-ul has returned alive. Before anyone can react further, the dungeon gate behind him begins to crack. Blue light spreads through its surface until the entire gate collapses into glowing particles and disappears completely. The Garden of Meditation has been fully cleared. The gathered hunters can hardly believe what they are witnessing. Some even wonder if that broke washout really cleared an S-rank dungeon by himself, while others simply stand frozen in disbelief. The Han-ul is just as confused by the crowd waiting outside. Instead of a few association officials, he finds all 3 of the country's major guildmasters standing there. A Hunter Association manager named Kim Jung-soo approaches him first and thanks him for clearing the dungeon. He explains that when the Garden of Meditation suddenly entered a red pattern, the association believed a dungeon break was about to happen, so he immediately requested support from every major guild. Even they had not expected such a massive response, but no one wanted to risk ignoring a possible S-rank disaster. Jung-soo privately admits that if it had only been a normal dungeon break, the association's own forces would probably have been enough. Just then, someone notices the bloodstone hanging from Hanul's side. One of the guildmasters immediately understands that the only way Hanul could possess a bloodstone is by personally defeating the boss monster hidden in the deepest part of the dungeon. It leaves everyone stunned by what the rookie hunter has accomplished. A bald hunter named Dong Pal from the Aegis Guild steps forward and immediately invites Hanul to join his guild. Hanul politely refuses, and the rejection hits Dong Pal like leash into his peach. Bro is unable to believe his recruitment offer has been shoved back in his arts. Watching from nearby, Suhyuk remarks that every hunter has the right to decide which guild they work with and whom they choose to share their information with. Ma Dongpal reluctantly concludes that Guild Pongbak must have already secured Hanul before anyone else had the chance. Meanwhile, the leader of the Samurai Guild quietly observes the entire exchange. Instead of making a direct recruitment offer, she approaches Hanul alone. After noticing that he seems to have something on his mind, she hands him her business card and introduces herself as Guildmaster Samurai. She simply tells him to contact her whenever he is ready. and confidently adds that she can provide exactly what he is looking for. Her words immediately catch Hanwol's interest. The next day, our boy checks his phone and reads Tsunare's message again. She tells him she knows that he needs a craftsman capable of processing bloodstones. All he has to do is arrive at the address she sends at noon on Wednesday. Our Sigma follows the directions and soon reaches the meeting place. The moment he sees the sign, his brain instantly blue screens. The meeting is at Cafe Artorium, a famous hunter-only cafe that only the country's top hunters can enter. He has only heard rumors about it until now. As soon as our guy enters, he quietly looks around. Every customer is a well-known hunter. Sitting among people he has only heard about makes him feel that his stock is definitely rising. Our rookie, who was getting treated like an NPC a few days ago, thinks that his time has finally come. Just then, a mocking voice calls out to him, and our Sigma turns to see a man staring him down with a grin. The stranger introduces himself as Hong Han Sol from Bonebreaker and asks if he is the hunter who cleared the Garden of Meditation. The name immediately catches Hanwol's attention. Bonebreaker is infamous throughout the hunter world. It is a fixer guild that accepts any job as long as the money is good, earning a reputation for cruelty rather than honor. Our boy immediately decides this is exactly the kind of red flag he wants to avoid. But this nuthead ignores the hint and keeps talking. He wonders if the rumors about Hanwol are true. Our guy calmly asks which rumors he means. Hanwol, as he claims, everyone believes Hanwol is already affiliated with Guild Pungbake and is only pretending to be an independent rookie to create publicity before officially joining them. He even asks how much Pungbake paid him for the act. Watching Hanwol remain completely calm, Hanwol thinks he has cornered him and pushes even harder. Our Sigma simply replies that people are free to believe whatever they want because rumors remain rumors. Hansel points out that everyone in the cafe is watching and says that refusing to answer only makes him look more suspicious. Our boy shrugs it off completely. He says he does not care what people think. The answer catches Hansel completely off guard. Bro clearly expects some dramatic reaction but instead gets absolutely nothing like his manhood. He tries to continue pressuring Hanwol, but before he can speak again, another voice interrupts him. Tsunare arrives there with a full bakery behind her back. The atmosphere inside the cafe changes instantly. Hunters who remain calm around SSS-Rank monsters suddenly sit up straight. Hansol's confidence disappears the moment he sees her. Tsunare notices the awkward atmosphere and casually asks if something happened. Hansol hurriedly greets her and reminds her that they have met before. Tsunare politely admits she cannot remember him because she only remembers people important enough to leave an impression. Hansol takes the spiritual damage head-on and tries introducing himself again as a member of Bonebreaker, but Tsunare completely ignores him and walks past him as if he does not exist. She calmly sits across from our Sigma instead. She apologizes to Hansol, saying this cafe is usually peaceful until people like Hansol show up. Poor guy tries to defend himself, but Tsunare dismisses him without even looking his way, saying he is not worth paying attention to in the first place. Tsunare finally glances back at Hansol and asks why he is still standing there. Realizing he is completely lost, Hansol quietly leaves the cafe. Our guy watches a top-ranked guild baddie uninstall someone's confidence in real time. Tsunare then returns to the reason for the meeting. She asks if they should finally discuss her proposal, and our boy agrees. This 1110 baddie explains that she knows Pungbek has already approached him. To make sure he seriously considers Tsunare Guild as well, she plans to offer him something much more valuable than a normal recruitment package. She simply calls it a favor, but hints that its value far exceeds anything another guild can currently offer. Our Sigma thinks about the guild itself, which is one of the country's 3 strongest guilds for 2 reasons. The first is Tsunare herself, whose combat ability and leadership are second to none. The second is the exceptional equipment used by every guild member. Their weapons and armor consistently surpass what rival guilds can produce. The reason behind that advantage is an extraordinary craftsman secretly affiliated with the guild. Like everyone else, our boy imagines the legendary craftsman living somewhere deep in the mountains, hidden away from the world. Instead, Tsunare simply takes him to Mulai Dong, an ordinary neighborhood in Seoul. Our Sigma is genuinely surprised. Tsunare laughs after noticing his reaction. She says everyone expects the craftsman to live in some secret mountain workshop, which is exactly why almost nobody ever guesses the real location. As they continue walking, Tsunare briefly activates an illusion skill. Pink light flashes around her, transforming her appearance into a cute bunny-themed version, before disappearing just as quickly. She explains that she uses this illusion so nobody can secretly follow her to the craftsman's workshop. Our guy immediately understands the strategy. A hunter of Tsunare's level can deceive almost anyone with her illusion magic, unless someone follows him directly instead. Locating the legendary craftsman is practically impossible. Meanwhile, back at Cafe Artorium, Hansol is still furious. Humiliated by what happened, he quietly swears revenge. To Gepen Mule Dong, Tsunare leads our Sigma to an old building with its shutters closed, and our boy is about to raise his bamboo stick. But she knocks on the door, literally saying not today. Inside, the old blacksmith immediately starts complaining that she is late. She casually apologizes and explains that she brought a guest with her, but the old man only grumbles that he almost closed the shop and went looking for her himself. Watching the exchange, our boy quickly realizes this rough-looking craftsman must be Tsunare Guild's legendary blacksmith. Without wasting any time, he gets straight to business and asks about the bloodstone. The old man introduces himself as San-chan, the owner of the ironworks, and asks Hanul to hand it over. The moment the bloodstone lands in his hands, his expression completely changes. He slowly turns it under the light, carefully inspecting every angle before quietly calling it a highest-grade specimen. Even Senare looks surprised by his reaction. Sanchin explains that there is not a single scratch on the stone and admits it is the first flawless bloodstone he has ever seen in his entire career. After examining it one last time, he immediately accepts the commission. Sanchin then places a glowing contract in front of Hanul and tells him to sign it. Curious, our guy asks what kind of contract it is. The blacksmith explains that it is a mana-seal contract. Once signed, both parties become magically bound to fulfill their promises, and anyone who breaks the agreement suffers a punishment based on the contract's rank. Hanul carefully reads through the document, but the legal language makes absolutely no sense to him. Brachi's brain instantly glitches. He asks Sanchan to explain it in simple words instead. Sanchan casually explains that if he fails to complete the commission, he will literally burn to death. Our Sigma nearly has a heart attack hearing that, but the old blacksmith remains completely calm. He explains that the punishment only applies to him if he fails to process the bloodstone properly or tries to steal it. Hanul lets out a nervous laugh and says he would have trusted Sanchan anyway because Sanchan personally introduced him. The old craftsman shakes his head and explains that this has nothing to do with trust. A bloodstone of this quality deserves complete dedication, and he is willing to risk his own life to forge it properly. After finishing the paperwork, Hanul and Sanchan leave the workshop together. She offers him a ride home, but our boy politely refuses, saying he still has a few things to take care of. She smiles and jokes that the country's newest famous rookie must be very busy these days. Just before she drives away, Hanul stops her with a question. He asks about the people living around the workshop and wonders what they mean to her. Sonari immediately becomes more serious and asks why he wants to know. Hanul explains that everyone in the neighborhood greeted her warmly, almost like family. If those people are truly precious to her, then there is something important he feels she should know. Meanwhile, Sanchan continues admiring the bloodstone inside the workshop. Even after decades as a blacksmith, he cannot hide his excitement. He quietly admits that working on something this flawless requires absolute focus. Before he can begin, several strangers suddenly get inside. Sanchin immediately asks about their whereabouts. It's this bitch Hansol who claims they belong to the guild Hanul supposedly joined and says they have come to retrieve the bloodstone because it was left behind by mistake. The story sounds ridiculous, and Sanchin sees through the lie immediately. He calmly insists that he has never seen any bloodstone and claims this is nothing more than an ordinary ironworks. Unfortunately, one of the intruders notices the flaw in his story and asks how an ordinary blacksmith would even know how valuable a bloodstone is. The old man realizes he's slipped up. The leader reveals that they personally watched Hanul enter the workshop earlier with a woman and urges him to hand over the bloodstone immediately. Sanchan refuses without hesitation. He tells them that if they truly represent Hanul, they can bring the client here themselves. The answer only annoys the bitch-brained Blondie, who orders his men to beat the old man until he talks, warning them not to kill him. The gang slowly surrounds Sanchan. A nearby passerby notices the commotion and tries to intervene, but one of the thugs grabs him before he can help and throws him aside. Just as the attackers prepare to rush forward, one of them suddenly freezes in place. Panic spreads across his face as he tells his boss that he cannot move his body at all, not even those 3 inches. The leader dismisses it as nonsense and crashes a fist into his face. But the guy stays stiff like a statue. Just then, our boy arrives there and praises his sage for folding them like this. As our boy left for home, he suddenly noticed footsteps following him through the quiet streets. Right then, Sage sends him a notification confirming his suspicion. The person hiding behind him is none other than Hong Hansol, the same risless hunter he met earlier that day. Our Sigma is caught off guard because Hansol had not been wearing any disguise before. For a moment, he wonders if Sage somehow made a mistake. Another notification immediately appears. Favor Soft Eye activates and explains that it can detect any camouflage or stealth skill regardless of the user's rank. Hansol has been hiding with a stealth ability the entire time. Our guy quietly thanks Sage for the warning and tells it to keep watching. If Hansol makes even the slightest suspicious move, Sage is to notify him immediately. Hansol cannot help wondering why Hansol would go as far as using stealth just to follow him. Realizing he has already been exposed, Hansol drops his stealth and steps out into the open. Before things turn ugly, our Chad gives him one chance to leave peacefully. Hansol bursts into laughter, mocking the idea that a mere B-rank rookie could threaten him. Calling our Sigma arrogant, he summons his contracted spirit, who steals intel barefoot and orders it to investigate Hansol's equipment and abilities. He still cannot understand how someone detected him while he was completely hidden and begins wondering if Hansol has some powerful detection-type constellation. At the same time, his curiosity about the bloodstone only grows stronger. Seeing that it's pointless to argue with this butt-brain, our boy calmly says there is nothing left to discuss. If Hansol refuses to leave, they will settle it the hard way. He then throws a smoke bomb onto the ground. Thick smoke instantly spreads through the area, swallowing the entire battlefield. As the smoke settles, Gano steps out of it. The moment Hansol sees a goblin appear, he starts laughing even harder. He openly mocks Hansol for relying on what he calls a trash-tier monster. Bro thinks he's fighting an NPC, but it's the biggest mistake of his career. Hansol's spirit confidently approaches Kirik while mocking his expensive equipment. It boasts that after defeating him, it will strip away his armor, steal his sword, and loot everything valuable. Kirik does not answer and disappears. In the blink of an eye, he flashes behind the spirit with incredible speed. Before it can even react, Kirik's blade slices clean across its body. The spirit barely manages to cry out before another slash lands under his cakes this time. It desperately jumps backward, but Kirik never gives it room to breathe. He rushes forward again, his small body becoming nothing but a blur as he unleashes one strike after another. Every attempt to escape is stopped by another precise slash. Suddenly, warning messages begin appearing before Hansol's spirit. They repeatedly order it to stop fighting and retreat immediately. Hansol stares at the notifications in complete confusion, unable to understand what is happening. He desperately tries to flee, asking how an ordinary goblin can be this fast, but Kirik relentlessly chases him down. Slash after slash tears through the spirit until he is completely helpless. Hansol's men can only watch in disbelief. They admit they plan to ignore the goblin, but the trash-tier goblin just puts their premium summon on life support. Looking at his near-dead state, our boy orders Gano to stop. At that exact moment, another notification appears. The thief who steals intel barefoot has terminated its contract with Hansol. The broken contract sends a violent backlash through Hansol's body. He coughs up blood and finally realizes how badly he underestimated our Sigma. Hansol praises Kirik for his work before sending the goblin back. Hansol apologizes over and over, admits he was wrong, and promises to do absolutely anything if Hansol spares him. Our boy thinks for a moment before deciding he has no interest in killing someone who can no longer fight. Hansol nearly breaks down in relief, convinced he somehow survives the encounter. Unfortunately for him, that relief lasts only a second. A violent wave of crimson energy suddenly erupts and Sanari appears at the scene. This alpha witch is looking colder than usual, and the overwhelming aura pouring from her body makes even Hansol forget how to breathe. She apologizes for lowering her guard and says she never realized someone was following them. If things had gone differently, he could have ended up in danger because of her carelessness. Our guy feels guilty that it all happened because of him. Sanari gently tells him not to blame himself since the criminals are the ones at fault. After a brief silence, he asks what she plans to do with the defeated men. Sanchan calmly explains that they should hand them over to the Hunter Association, but quickly Sanare decides that punishment is far too lenient. That's why she wants to kill them herself. Sanchan immediately asks her not to go that far. Sanare argues that these men almost murdered him and deserve no mercy. He quietly insists that he does not want her carrying that burden because of him. Sanare stares at him for several long moments before letting out a sigh. She finally agrees to spare them, but not before teaching them a lesson. Crimson mana erupts around her body as an overwhelming wave of killing intent floods the street. Desetsu's sense was not to stop her this time, and their argument eventually turns into a mini-fight. Seeing this, our boy quietly admits he still cannot figure Sanare out. One moment she is warm and kind, and the next she is terrifying enough to scare grown hunters into running for their lives. A moment later, Sanchan tells him to come and pick his bloodstone the next day. When Hanul notices how exhausted Sanchan looks, he suggests taking some time to rest first. The psychomold hag simply shakes his head, explaining that moments like these are when a blacksmith must stay completely focused. He tells our guy to return tomorrow evening, and Hanul gladly leaves the commission in his hands. Later, Sanare thanks Hanul once again for everything he did. Our boy modestly insists he did nothing special, but Shorty refuses to accept that. Without his help, she would have lost someone precious to her. She promises to repay the favor someday, and tells him to contact her whenever he needs to eat those cakes. Hanul agrees, and as she drives away, she reminds him that she will be waiting for his call. That night, after finally making it home, our Sigma hopes he can enjoy some well-earned rest. The system immediately ruins that dream. A notification suddenly appears, announcing that the 702nd wave will begin in 2 hours. Our boy stares at the screen in disbelief before letting out a long sigh. He grabs a few energy drinks, prepares himself for another sleepless night, and wonders what kind of nightmare the next wave is about to throw at him. The 702nd wave begins with Sage announcing a new operation called Stop the Monster, with a monster. Our boy immediately checks which monsters he can deploy to defend the monarch's castle. Looking over his army, he realizes how much stronger he has become since the previous wave. His roster now includes goblin slaves, goblin fighters, lizardmen, an ogre berserker, and Zen Kiruk. Seeing the lineup, our Sigma cannot help feeling satisfied. After checking his troops, he opens the structure menu and is surprised by a new notification. Because he is the only player participating in this wave, he receives a special privilege. An item peddler appears exclusively inside the monarch's castle for this wave. The merchant quickly sets up shop and offers several useful items, including monster energy bars, explosive Molotov cocktails, horns of the blizzard, and incense of focus. Our guy carefully checks each item before stopping at the monster energy bars. Their description explains that they restore the health and mana of monsters deployed inside the castle. Hanul immediately realizes this is one of the best purchases he can make since healing his monsters is basically giving them another chance to fight. He instantly buys all 25 bars. He considers buying more supplies but hesitates because he still has no idea what kind of enemies he is about to face. New and Sage offers to display the wave information. Our boy is genuinely surprised and immediately complains that Sage never mentioned this feature during the previous wave. The information window finally appears, revealing that the 702nd wave contains one 7-star monster and 1,199 2-star monsters. Our Sigma stares at the numbers for several seconds before reading them again to make sure he is not hallucinating. One incredibly powerful boss backed by nearly 1,200 monsters is far beyond anything he expected. Even he admits the numbers are ridiculous, and briefly wonders how anyone is supposed to stop an army that large. Before he can panic, Sage suggests using the gacha system. It reminds him that whenever players hit a wall, there is usually only one solution left. Our boy checks his inventory and finds one premium gacha ticket along with one special grade development ticket. Without wasting any time, he activates the premium gacha. The surroundings instantly transform into a blood-red sky. A huge armored baddie slowly emerges from the darkness, standing silently beneath the crimson clouds. Before its identity is revealed, the scene abruptly shifts as the 702nd wave officially begins. The big skeleton wearing a crown is leading the wave and its crimson eyes burning with unnatural light. Sage identifies it as the wave's 7-star hero monster. The moment the hero monster enters the battlefield, it resists the blessing of light and salt, instantly deactivates the effect, and restores the undead's normal damage reduction. Our guy loses a few brain cells at this but quickly accepts it. He prepares another strategy, and instead of allowing all 1,200 monsters to rush his defenses together, our Sigma divides the monarch's castle into 4 separate barracks connected by narrow entrances. The design forces the undead army to split apart, preventing them from overwhelming his defenders with sheer numbers. The first wave crashes into the first barracks after passing through the salt room. Their formation is already weakened before the fighting even begins. Aubrey Monster confidently attacks the defenders while the strongest skeletons charge forward. The defenders slam into the skeleton army head-on, smashing apart soldiers, knights, and archers before they can gain momentum. Notifications begin filling the screen as skeleton after skeleton falls. Within moments, the remaining enemy count drops to around 1,102. The battle is just as fierce at the second barracks. The defenders refuse to surrender a single step, holding the narrow entrance while cutting down every skeleton that reaches them. Suddenly, Tears of the Ancient God activate. A wave of pink energy bursts across the battlefield, sweeping through the undead ranks. Skeleton soldiers, knights, and archers shatter one after another until the remaining monster count falls again to 1,021. Meanwhile, the fighting continues at the third barracks. A defender unleashes Raven's Wing Beat. The blade flashes through the air, releasing a razor-sharp slash that tears clean through the advancing skeletons, carving a path straight through their formation. Only 937 monsters are left now. The fight moves towards the fourth barrack, and another powerful area attack erupts across the battlefield. Just then, Sage announces that the lizard men have activated their swarm bonus, increasing their combat performance while fighting together. It wipes out dozens of skeleton soldiers, and the battle keeps swinging in our boys' favor as the skeleton army continues to fall. 30 more skeleton soldiers, 6 knights, and 20 archers collapse one after another, dropping the remaining count to 881. Watching the numbers shrink, our Sigma finally relaxes a little. The salt room is doing exactly what he hoped, weakening the undead enough for his monsters to keep them under control. For a brief moment, it feels like the plan is working perfectly. Then the sky suddenly erupts with crimson light. The 7-star boss finally reveals himself as Yahello, the crowned Lich King. Without wasting a second, he begins casting Undead Resurrection. Our guy can only sigh because the boss has the most annoying ability imaginable. A giant crimson sphere forms above Yahello's hand before countless streams of red light rain across the battlefield. The spell completes, and every skeleton soldier, knight, and archer that had just been defeated immediately stands back up as if nothing ever happened. The monster count instantly jumps from 881 right back to 2,100 Arls. Hanul's brain completely leaves the chat as he stares at the screen in disbelief. His monsters confirm that every enemy has revived, but unlike the undead, their own injuries and exhaustion remain. Still, they have no choice except to charge forward and fight the entire army all over again. But fortunately, our guy already prepares for something like this. He immediately spends 23 monster energy bars from the item peddler. Green energy washes over every monster and completely restores their health and mana. The exhausted troops instantly return to full strength as if they never fought a battle at all. Hanul smiles, realizing this has become a resource war and it depends on whose resources run out first. The second round begins immediately. Fire, lightning, and steel crash together as the monsters collide once again. Skeletons fall in huge numbers. 40 soldiers, 20 archers, and 10 knights are wiped out, followed by another 20 soldiers, reducing the total to 981. Just as victory starts looking possible again, Yahello calmly raises his hand and casts Undead Resurrection for the second time. Every defeated skeleton rises once more, resetting the count back to the full 1,200. The same brutal cycle repeats again and again. Hanul's army destroys 50 soldiers and 40 archers, reducing the count to 1,110. However, Illimatus simply resurrects them all. His monsters keep fighting, cutting down 20 knights, 28 archers, 37 soldiers, and another 21 knights, pushing the enemy all the way down to 850. The progress lasts only moments before Illimatus casts the spell again and restores every fallen undead without hesitation. No matter how many skeletons fall, the battlefield always returns to its original state. The story briefly shifts to the real world. Hanno sits alone at his desk in the middle of the night while his monitors continue displaying wave notifications. It's 4:01 a.m., showing just how long this battle has already dragged on. While everyone else is sleeping peacefully, our boy is still working the world's worst night shift. The system really treats him like an unpaid intern. Back inside the monarch's castle, the endless battle continues. Hanno watches another resurrection trigger while his monsters keep clashing against the Crimson Horde. Even Sage begins sounding worried as the pressure continues to build. Our guy calmly reassures them that everything is still under control before restoring his army once again with more monster energy bars. His troops recover instantly and throw themselves back into battle. However, Illimatus is beginning to show cracks as well. Undead resurrection consumes enormous amounts of mana, and the more times he revives the army, the closer he gets to emptying his own reserves. The Lich King finally notices something is wrong. He angrily questions why he still cannot capture the castle despite reviving his army over and over. A massive surge of crimson energy explodes around him as he abandons the endless resurrection strategy and prepares to fight personally. The warning immediately appears. Illimatus begins marching directly toward the audience chamber after breaking through Barracks 4. Hanno quickly understands what is happening. The Lich has lost patience and is coming himself. Instead of panicking, our Sigma calmly orders the Lizardmen to withdraw and prepares the final defense. Another alert warns that if the last barracks falls, the audience chamber will be completely exposed. Bold Illimatus smashes through Barracks 4 and arrives before the final barricade. Waiting for him are only 3 goblin fighters. Seeing them, the Lich laughs in complete disbelief. He cannot understand why anyone would expect 3 weak goblins to stop a 7-star undead king. The goblins refuse to move. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they firmly raise a large golden cross in front of them, while Illimatus mocks their hopeless resistance. Believing the battle is already over, he unleashes Death Tide. A gigantic wave of dark mana surges across the battlefield, swallowing everything in its path and threatening to erase the 3 goblins instantly. For instead of panicking, Hanno calmly tells Sage there was never anything to worry about because he prepared for this exact situation hours earlier. The story flashes back to before the wave begins. When our boy uses his premium gacha ticket and unbelievably pulls an S-rank item, even he can hardly believe his -100 sen luck. The reward is the Cross of the Primordial God, a legendary holy relic capable of destroying evil. Its unique skill, straight to the Lord in one shot, has one unbelievable effect. It randomly annihilates a nearby undead monster regardless of rank. Back in the present, the 3 goblins activate the relic together. Brilliant golden light erupts from the cross and instantly tears through Illimatus's Death Tide before piercing straight through the Lich King's skull. Illimatus's confident expression disappears as he realizes what just happened. Out of every undead on the battlefield, the skill randomly selects him. The holy explosion engulfs the battlefield. Golden light tears through the throne room, and a critical hit notification appears. Illimatus is completely obliterated, but victory comes at a heavy price. The Cross of the Primordial God shatters after using its power, and also folds those 3 pretty-ass goblins with it. Hanno quietly looks at the fallen goblins and apologizes. He knows there was no other way to win. Moments later, the system officially confirms the 7-0 Tekken wave has been cleared. The legendary undead army is finally destroyed by 3 goblins, the Lich never considered worthy of his attention. But back in the real world, our boy notices a strange item left behind after the battle. It is called Illimatus's half-body, a special grade item containing the remains of the destroyed Lich. The description is vague and suspicious. Before he can decide anything, the item peddler immediately offers to buy it for 5,000 gold. Diano studies the strange skull-shaped item for a while. It clearly feels too valuable to sell, but he has no idea what it actually does. As he asks Sage for advice, but Sage is as confused as he is. Our guy laughs because even his walking encyclopedia has officially blue-screened. Wishing he could simply reveal the hidden information himself, he suddenly remembers another reward he recently obtained. He brings out the Beholder's Glasses, a unique item designed specifically for Beholder-type summons. After giving the glasses to Sage, a new skill immediately unlocks. Sage gains Advanced Analysis, allowing it to reveal hidden information about items, monsters, and dungeons. Delighted that the plan actually works, Hanno asks Sage if it likes its new glasses. Sage happily bounces around and begins the analysis. Once the scan finishes, the truth is finally revealed. Illimatus's half-body can be placed inside the audience chamber of the monarch's castle. After certain conditions are met, the item will revive Illimatus completely. More importantly, once revived this way, the 7-star Lich will become absolutely loyal to the castle and serve Hanno as one of his own monsters. Your Sigma freezes for a moment while processing what he just learned. He always hates watching powerful bosses disappear after every wave, but now he has a way to permanently recruit one instead. And not just any monster, but an actual 7-star boss. Without hesitating any longer, Hanul politely declines the item peddler's offer. 5,000 gold suddenly feels like pocket change compared to the chance of recruiting the Lich King himself. The scene shifts back to the real world as our boy arrives outside Sanchan's workshop. Our guy asks if the old blacksmith seriously stayed awake all night again. Sanchan proudly announces that he really did spend the entire night working, and all that effort paid off because he has created an absolute masterpiece. Hearing that, our Sigma's expectations immediately shoot through the roof. As they follow Sanchan inside, our guy's brain installs an RTX 5090 before he even sees the reward. He wonders if the old man forged some futuristic mana rifle, an armored combat suit, or some other broken piece of equipment. Bro Persan Sanchan eventually walks over carrying the finished item and simply hands it to him. Our guy reaches, but the words disappear the moment he actually looks at it. The item is a beautiful crimson brooch glowing with powerful mana. Hanul freezes before recognizing it almost instantly. It is the legendary Brooch of Glory. Sonari can hardly believe an S-rank bloodstone becomes this instead of a weapon or armor piece. Sonari immediately barks at her for complaining after he spends the entire night making it. Realizing the old craftsman is about to get offended, our boy quickly assures him that he genuinely loves it. Right then, Sage finishes analyzing the item and confirms it is an S-rank mental type equipment. Hearing that, our guy thinks this is exactly the result he was aiming for. He gladly accepts the brooch and thanks Sanchan sincerely. The item's effects are incredible. The Brooch of Glory completely protects its wearer from mental attacks like charm and confusion, while keeping the mind clear. Even better, summoners can equip it as well. Hanul immediately realizes just how valuable this is. Mental immunity items are unbelievably rare, especially for summoners, and only a handful exist in the entire world. Sanchan smiles after seeing how happy he is, tells him to make good use of it, and finally heads off for some sleep. Our boy is so happy that he finally owns an S-rank item with his own name on it. After leaving the workshop, Hanul heads toward the hill behind his house, a place he has not visited in a long time. Sitting on the familiar bench, he reflects on the past. Whenever life became overwhelming or fear kept him awake at night, this was always where he came to clear his head. Our guy smiles while admitting that things are different now. He is no longer the helpless person who used to hide up here whenever life became too much. That peaceful moment ends when the system suddenly announces that every requirement for audience with the Lord has finally been completed. Crafting the Brooch of Glory turns out to be the final condition. Curious, Hanul activates the skill immediately. A portal opens inside the audience chamber of the monarch's castle, giving him his first opportunity to speak directly with its mysterious ruler. Our boy gets excited because he has been waiting forever to ask this guy countless questions. Instead of speaking naturally, however, the system immediately presents him with dialogue options like he accidentally opens an RPG from 2006. Slightly confused, he selects the greeting option anyway. The Dream Lord silently waves back from his throne. Our Sigma stares at him in disbelief, wondering if this is seriously how every conversation is going to work. A list of conversation topics appears, including monster status, item status, castle durability, the memorial rite, and casual conversation. Hoping something interesting finally happens, Hanul selects the memorial rite. The Lord explains that a ceremony is currently being held for monsters who died protecting the castle, and asks whether he wishes to attend. Our guy immediately understands this must be for the goblin fighters who sacrificed themselves during the last wave. Without hesitation, he accepts. The ceremony takes place beside a large bonfire surrounded by grieving goblins. Our boy quietly kneels before the flames and thanks the 3 goblin fighters for giving their lives to protect the castle. He admits that without their sacrifice, clearing the 702nd wave would have been impossible, and promises he will never forget what they did. After the ceremony ends, the system informs him that the Dream Lord appreciates his attendance before returning him to the conversation menu. Next, Hanul checks the castle's durability. The Lord explains that repairs are already underway, but will take 2 full days unless additional mana stones are supplied. Our Sigma continues working through every available dialogue option, hoping the conversation eventually becomes more personal. Instead, almost everything feels like reading castle maintenance reports. Finally, with nothing else left, he selects casual conversation. This time, the Dream Lord unexpectedly asks how he has been doing. Relieved that the conversation is finally becoming normal, Hanul simply answers that he is doing well. From there, the Lord suddenly becomes too talkative. He explains that the castle recently ran out of half-drake meat, forcing him to experiment with cooking skeleton night horse bones into broth. Surprisingly, the soup turns out pretty good, so he even recommends it to the other monsters. Although monsters technically do not need food, he believes everyone still deserves to enjoy a good meal. The Lord is actually a hot baddie who continues chatting about gathering herbs around the castle and testing which ones are edible. Our boy simply listens while wondering who this yapper really is. Instead of sounding like some mysterious ruler, the Dream Lord spends the next 30 minutes passionately discussing recipes and gardening. Our guy was expecting some ancient wisdom, but he accidentally unlocks fantasy Gordon Ramsay. Eventually, the conversation ends with a simple farewell. The system announces that the Lord's favorability increases by 1 point. Hanul reflects on everything he gains from the meeting. The favorability increase is useful, but something else worries him even more. Listening to the Lord casually describe running out of food and struggling with basic supplies makes him realize the monarch's castle is in far worse condition than he originally believed. At this rate, surviving future waves may become impossible unless he finds a way to strengthen the castle itself. The story then shifts to later that night as our boy finally starts another live stream. Appearing through his familiar holographic avatar, he greets everyone after a long break. His regular viewers immediately flood the chat, excited to see him again and asking why he disappears for so long. Several people beg him to finally explain everything that happens inside the Garden of Meditation, but Hanul apologizes and says he actually needs help with something else today. The chat instantly complains because they all expect story time instead. Our Sigma explains that he wants advice about a hypothetical situation in the game MSM. He asks everyone what they would do if they owned a monarch's castle that had almost no soldiers and no way to build proper defenses. The chat immediately starts throwing out ideas. One viewer bluntly says the castle is already doomed and he should just give up. Another argues that hiring huge numbers of monsters could solve the problem, but someone else points out that buying hundreds of monsters would bankrupt anyone. Eventually, another viewer suggests recruiting a monster capable of producing its own army instead. That single comment immediately catches Hanul's attention. The viewer reminds everyone about an ant-type monster that can continuously spawn large numbers of followers. Our boy instantly realizes that creature could completely solve his troop shortage and wonders why he never thought of it before. The only problem is figuring out where to find one. Just then, one of his longtime viewers, Bald is Strongest, suddenly asks if Hanul is a B-rank hunter. Our guy confirms he is and wonders why that matters. Moments later, the viewer reveals they have just discovered a gate containing that exact monster and that their guild has already claimed it. They ask if Hanul wants to come capture it together. Our Sigma freezes in complete surprise as he realizes that Bald is Strongest is actually a real hunter. The story shifts to the headquarters of the Aegis Guild. Inside his office, the bald guild master slumps over his desk with a frustrated sigh, grumbling that it looks like another promising rookie is slipping away. From everything he's hearing, Kim Hanul is about to end up with either Samurai or Pungbok instead of Aegis. The news only makes things worse. Headlines flood every screen. One reports that a rookie hunter has cleared the Garden of Deep Sorrow, featuring our boy's photo. Another claims Hanul's decision has narrowed down to Pungbok and Samurai, with the two guilds practically fighting over him. A third article even shows Hanul meeting Samurai at Cafe Artorium, making it look like the deal is already finished. The guildmaster throws his hands up in frustration. He wonders why nobody seems to appreciate how good the Aegis Guild actually is. In his eyes, they are just as capable as the other top guilds, and their intelligence network is the best in the country. He really wants our Sigma to join them, but right now that dream looks farther away than ever. Before he can complain any longer, the office door bursts open and an 11'10" Russian beauty steps inside. He immediately recognizes Asha and tells her to stop treating him like a trashy BF, reminding her to use his official title. If rumors spread that their guildmaster gets pushed around by his own subordinate, it would be embarrassing. He grumbles that stress is going to make him bald, but our baddie immediately fires back that he's already a certified hairless guy. After their usual back and forth, he finally asks if she discovered another valuable gate. Aegis possesses the best intelligence network in the country. It all comes from Asha's constellation ability, Eye of the Outer Dimension. The skill allows her to detect gates before they even open and identify the monsters waiting inside. Thanks to her, Aegis always knows where valuable dungeons will appear long before anyone else. Watching her walk in so seriously, the guildmaster assumes she must have found another massive discovery. Instead, Asha shakes her head. This time it has nothing to do with a gate. She reminds him about the expedition scheduled for Saturday, the A-rank dungeon she detected a month ago, and asks if he'll be participating. He confirms he will, because it's an important operation. Then she casually asks if she can bring a friend along. The request completely catches him off guard. Since Asha herself is an A-rank hunter, she's always welcome on expeditions. But when he asks who this mysterious friend is, things immediately go down like his hairless balls. Asha admits they aren't part of Aegis. She doesn't know what guild they're in. She isn't even sure of their exact rank. Then she casually drops the bomb that she's never actually met them in person. The guildmaster stares at her in disbelief. He asks if she's seriously asking him to bring a stranger into a dangerous dungeon. Asha reminds him that he was the one complaining about being short-handed and saying anyone capable would help. He argues that's true, but he still needs to know who the person actually is. He asks for their guild, their rank, even their name, and Asha has no answers. Bro's brain instantly blue screens fight for Balbus Compuin. Completely fed up, he asks if she's messing with him. She insists she isn't. Even if they've never met face-to-face, she's certain they're a good person, and promises he'll understand once they meet. The guildmaster flatly refuses, reminding her that dungeons are battlefields where people die, not places to gamble on internet friendships. Asha refuses to give up. She pleads with him, promising to take full responsibility if anything goes wrong and begging him to trust her just this once. Seeing how unusually serious she is, the guildmaster finally gives in. Since he's joining the expedition himself, he'll deal with any problems personally if they arise. Asha immediately lights up with excitement. He warns her that she's responsible for whatever happens and she happily agrees before thanking him over and over. A few days later, our boy arrives at Seiraksan, where hunters are gathering before the raid begins. As he steps into the forest, a familiar blonde woman carrying a rifle notices him and suddenly freezes. The streamer she knows as Trash Game Bro is the hunter standing in front of her. Our Sigma also freezes after seeing the girl in front of him. The surprise quickly turns into introductions. Our guy realizes that Bald is Strongest is actually this busty beauty, the vice leader of the Aegis Guild. She casually admits she never really tried to hide it, then says she's even more shocked because she never imagined the person behind Dead Game would turn out to be Hunter Kim Han-woo himself. She apologizes for never revealing her identity, explaining she planned to do it during one of their streams someday. Trying to ease the awkwardness, she jokes about his username being surprisingly manly, but our boy immediately thinks that's a weird thing to say because usernames do not have genders. She is an A-rank hunter, the second in command of the Aegis Guild, ranked 20th in the country, and known as the Libra Eye. Thanks to her constellation skill, her ability to analyze dungeons and detect monsters is considered unmatched. Han-woo has heard plenty about her reputation, but he still cannot believe the famous hunter and Bald is Strongest are the same person. He decides they can save the fan meeting for later, and reminds both of them that they have a raid to attend. The two hurry toward the gathering point together while Anastasia warns him that they should not keep everyone waiting. She casually mentions that their guild leader has been extra sensitive lately because of his disappearing hairline. By the time they arrive, the guild leader is already waiting with an irritated expression. He starts scolding Anastasia for taking so long and reminds her that she is the vice leader, so she should be setting an example. She calmly points out that she already checked the gate's opening time and insists they are not late. The guild leader ignores that and reminds her that she personally begged him to let an outsider join such an important expedition. He begins saying that if this mysterious hunter turns out to be disappointing, there will be consequences. But then he finally looks at the person standing beside her. Everything changes instantly. The moment he recognizes our boy as Hunter Kim Han-woo, his heart misses a beat. Instead of another lecture, he happily walks over and greets him warmly. The rest of the raid team is already assembled, with dozens of hunters waiting in formation for the gate to open. Our boy thanks her for accepting his invitation. He explains that bringing someone whose background they barely know onto an important raid is something most guilds would never allow. Today is technically their first time meeting face-to-face. She has spent enough time talking with him online to know he is a trustworthy person. That alone is why she invited him. Our Sigma quietly appreciates the trust they placed in him, without asking for anything in return. Anastasia admits she already knew he was a B-rank hunter, but she still cannot understand why someone as talented as Kim Han-woo spends so much time streaming and playing terrible games. Our boy is about to answer when the guild leader suddenly orders everyone to prepare because the gate is opening. Lightning tears across the sky as the rift begins forming overhead. The air shakes while violet light pours out of the growing portal. The instant it appears, Sage suddenly starts trembling. Our guy immediately notices something is wrong. Instead of answering normally, Sage begins performing a special analysis. One system message appears after another. Hidden information about the gate is acquired, but before Han-woo can process that, another warning appears stating that the gate has changed due to outside interference. Our Sigma's expression hardens as another notification reveals the monster waiting inside the gate is no longer the one everyone expected. Instead, the gate now contains burrowing flies, a horrifying swarm of giant insect monsters with glowing pink eyes and razor-sharp limbs. Han-woo instantly realizes something impossible has happened. He immediately thinks about warning guild leader Dongpal, but he quickly realizes nobody would believe such an unbelievable claim without proof. Then he remembers Anastasia's constellation ability. Her Eye of the Outer Dimension can directly observe monsters inside unopened gates. Our boy rushes over and urgently asks her to analyze the gate one more time. At first she looks confused, but the moment he tells her he believes the monsters inside have changed, her expression turns completely serious. She immediately activates her skill as her eyes glow with bright blue light and peeks deep into the rift. Only a few moments later, the confidence completely disappears from her face. She realizes Han-woo is right. Something impossible has happened inside the gate, unable to believe what she's seeing. The monsters inside have really changed, even she can barely process it. The guild leader notices her reaction right away and realizes something is seriously wrong. Without wasting another second, our boy urgently calls out to guild leader Dongpal and quickly tells him they have to abandon the original strategy. He suggests everyone needs to regroup immediately and protect one another. Dongpal cannot understand why our Sigma is suggesting such an inefficient formation, but Han-woo reveals the truth. The gate has changed and is now filled with burrowing flies. Asha supports Han-woo's warning, confirming that something inside the dungeon has definitely changed. Hearing this, Dongpal immediately orders every hunter to switch to Formation D before the gate fully opens. Several hunters are caught off guard because it completely throws away the strategy they spent so long preparing, but nobody argues once the order is repeated. The entire raid force quickly abandons their original positions and rushes into the new defensive formation. Watching everyone move in time, the guild leader quietly realizes they have managed to avoid the worst possible opening. Meanwhile, our boy calmly prepares himself as well. He activates Remnant Soul Copy, making sure he's ready before the real fight begins. A deafening crack of lightning splits the sky as the gate finally bursts open. The air shakes violently and an enormous swarm of burrowing flies explodes out of the rift. Countless insect monsters pour across the battlefield while a much larger queen leads them from the center with glowing crimson eyes. Several hunters freeze in disbelief because these are not the monsters anyone expected to face. Everyone wonders how burrowing flies are coming out of a completely different gate. Dongpal quickly shuts down the panic. He reminds everyone that even if the monsters changed unexpectedly, burrowing flies are still only D-rank creatures. Then he activates Guardian Descent. Orange mana erupts around his body as one of his arms transforms into a massive beast-like claw. With a powerful roar, he launches himself straight into the swarm and tears through dozens of burrowing flies in one devastating strike. Flames and shockwaves rip through the sky as monster after monster falls out of the air. Watching the attack, our guy cannot help being impressed. He already knows Dongpal is an S-rank hunter, but seeing that kind of overwhelming strength in person is something else entirely. One attack wipes out a huge portion of the swarm, proving exactly why the guild leader is one of the strongest hunters in the country. Even so, our Sigma quickly realizes raw strength alone will not solve this problem. There are simply too many enemies for one person to handle forever. He prepares to jump into the battle himself. Then he suddenly looks up and freezes. The swarm above them continues pouring out of the gate without slowing down, covering the sky like an endless black cloud. Our boy stares at the overwhelming horde and realizes the real battle has only just begun. Just then, this jiggly guild beauty appears and attacks the swarm with rifle fire. Each shot explodes into the burrowing flies and blows holes through the insects before they can reach the hunters. As the battle rages, she notices something strange. The gate does not begin closing even after monsters keep pouring out. She quickly realizes this is not a normal gate but a fusion gate. Unlike ordinary gates, a fusion gate stays open until someone enters the dungeon and defeats the boss. That means standing outside and farming bugs all day is not an option. The boss has to go. She immediately decides that she and guild leader Dongpal can clear it together and tells everyone they need to head inside. Before they can move, one of the monsters suddenly dives straight at Anastasia. The attack comes out of nowhere, its crimson eyes flashing as it closes the distance in an instant. A burning mark grazes her forehead, but before the hit can turn into something worse, our boy says not today. A massive golden cross-shaped burst of energy erupts as Hanul blocks the attack head-on, shredding the insect apart and protecting her. Once everything settles, he calmly says he is coming too. Anastasia objects because she invited him to help him, not throw him into even greater danger, but our Sigma makes it clear he never came looking for a free carry. He has his own goal inside this dungeon, and he plans to defeat the boss himself. Seeing the determination on his face, she finally agrees. Dongpal hears this too while smashing burrowing flies left and right with blazing fists. He places team leader Kim Yong-tae in charge of the hunters outside while he, Anastasia, and our Chad form the assault team. The three charge together without wasting another second. Dongpal bulldozes through the swarm with overwhelming strength and every punch sends insects flying in pieces. Anastasia covers every opening with flawless rifle shots, picking off anything that slips past him, while Hanul cuts a clean path through the chaos. The three fight like a well-balanced party and force their way straight through the sea of monsters before leaping into the fusion gate together. Inside, they land in a long underground tunnel. The rocky walls spread deep into the darkness, making it obvious this dungeon is nothing like what they expected. Our guy immediately summons Sage and the little floating eye activates its scouting ability. Within moments, the system identifies the dungeon boss as the Amur Queen Ant. The information reveals that she is an incredibly powerful production-type monster capable of creating hundreds of giant worker ants, and each one is several meters long. The moment Hanul sees that description, he realizes this is exactly what Monarch's castle has been missing. Instead of hiring monsters one by one, this queen can produce an entire army by herself. Our Sigma's summoner instincts kick in instantly. As they continue deeper, Dongpal studies the tunnels and concludes this was originally an ant nest. This makes them wonder if this is an ant dungeon and why burrowing flies are coming out of it instead. Hanul admits he does not know yet, but believes the answer is waiting near the boss. They continue moving until Dongpal suddenly stops and sees that the tunnel is completely packed with dead giant ants. Their bodies cover the floor from wall to wall as if an entire colony has been wiped out. At first, Dongpal wonders if the ants slaughtered each other, but Anastasia immediately notices every corpse has the same injury. Every single ant has severed its own head. Even seasoned hunters have never seen monsters die like this. Hanul quietly pieces everything together and asks Anastasia if she remembers the host infection status effect. The answer hits both her and Dongpal immediately. The burrowing flies are not simply invading the ant nest. They are using the ants as living hosts. Hanul explains that the monsters behave just like real flies falling on Earth. Those parasites lay eggs inside ants, slowly take control of their nervous system, force them to wander away from the colony, and eventually make them detach their own heads. The larvae then hatch from the corpse. The mountain of dead ants is not the aftermath of a battle. It is an enormous breeding ground left behind by the burrowing flies. Anastasia realizes the ants have been dying one after another for a long time, which explains why so many bodies are piled together. Before anyone can think further, Dongpal suddenly catches a scent drifting through the tunnels. Hanul recognizes it immediately as the queen ant's pheromone. At the same time, they hear movement echoing through the underground passages. The burrowing flies are approaching from one direction, while the pheromone trail leads toward the queen from another. If they hesitate, they risk getting trapped between both forces. Dongpal offers to lead the way, but Hanul volunteers instead, explaining that Sage can track the pheromone far better than any human. Dongpal, Sage immediately begins analyzing the trail. System windows appear one after another as the floating eye scans the lingering scent. At first, the results are nothing but broken fragments of static. Bits of incomplete words slowly appear before disappearing again as the analysis keeps refining itself. Then two clear words finally emerge. Help me. Hanul freezes for a moment as a disturbing image flashes through the analysis. It is only a brief glimpse of a strained eye, but it is enough to leave him shaken. Dongpal notices the reaction and asks if he is alright. Our guy brushes it off, admitting the analysis just caught him off guard. Sage continues working until the scan finally completes. This time, the full message becomes clear. Help me, my child. The words repeat again and again across countless system windows until the entire tunnel is spammed with the same desperate plea. Whatever is waiting deeper inside this dungeon is no ordinary queen ant, and our boy realizes they have just uncovered something far stranger than a simple monster nest. The three keep pushing deeper into the tunnels, with Dongpal leading the charge while our boy and Anastasia stay close behind. Sage continues tracking the queen ant's pheromone trail, allowing Anastasia to guide the route with confidence. Every turn brings them closer to the boss, but the deeper they go, the worse the air becomes. The tunnels are filled with poisonous miasma mixed into the pheromones, making every breath heavier than the last. Anastasia manages to endure it thanks to the poison resistance she recently gained from her authority, but Hanul quickly notices that Dongpal is beginning to slow down. Even the guild leader's incredible stamina has limits, and our Sigma realizes they have to finish this dungeon fast before the poison wins the race. The group eventually reaches a massive stone wall covered in thick black slime. They smash through the final stretch of monsters blocking the way, and make their way past infected ants and burrowing flies. Fire erupts with every one of Ma Dongpal's punches, while Anastasia's rifle keeps dropping monsters from a distance with perfect accuracy. Even after cutting through wave after wave, Hanul can tell both of them are steadily weakening from the poison. Realizing the situation, our boy suggests that he'll enter the boss room alone. Both Dongpal and Anastasia reject the idea immediately. The guild leader refuses to let a guest clear an aegis dungeon for them, while Anastasia points out that one of the country's top guilds can't simply stand back and watch someone else do all the work. Even though both of them admit the poison is becoming a serious problem, they insist on continuing together. Hanul accepts their decision. The Baldi, Rifle Baddie, and our Sigma launches one final assault toward the chamber. Dongpal explodes forward with another devastating attack, his blazing fists smashing through the monsters and blowing open the tunnel ahead. The shockwave tears apart everything standing in front of them, but the poison finally catches up to him. Purple miasma surges through his body, forcing him to stagger while coughing blood. Anastasia also begins losing her balance as the pheromones overwhelm her resistance. Seeing both of them fall, our Chad immediately calls upon a guardian to bless them with nature's breath. Brilliant teal barriers form around Dongpal and Anastasia, surrounding them in glowing shields that block the poisonous miasma. The two recover enough to keep moving while Hanul remains outside without protection. With the poison temporarily under control, they finally enter the boss chamber. But what is inside is far beyond their bingo list. A gigantic insect queen is sitting there with her enormous body covered in cracked crimson armor, while countless burrowing flies crawl across her shell. One swollen eye constantly leaks pale fluid, and the monster calmly calls out to Hanul. She refers to him as her child and asks him to come closer so she can finally see his face. The repeated words make the entire scene feel wrong. Anastasia stares at the horrifying creature in disbelief, unable to understand how something can look this twisted. Behind the queen, there is an entire army of infected ants and flies, all moving with the same eerie glow in their eyes. Though our boy stays silent while the queen keeps calling him closer. Sweat runs down his face because our bitchless guy really finds his sus. Before doing anything else, he turns back to Dongpal and Anastasia and warns them not to attack the monsters that are about to appear, because they're his own tamed summons. A group of his burrowing flies arrives moments later, buzzing around him as proof. Dongpal simply nods and accepts it without hesitation. At this point, he's beyond questioning anything. Dongpal then prepares for battle. He opens the system and spends 1,000 gold to summon another Lizardman unit, but pauses for a moment after looking across the battlefield. The ground is covered with countless ant corpses and infected bodies, making the entire cavern feel more like a graveyard than a nest. Even our Sigma can't ignore how unsettling the sight is. Still, he pushes those thoughts aside and completes the summon. The Lizardman crashes into the enemy army immediately, swinging its massive axe through infected ants and carving a bloody path straight toward the queen. At the same time, Hanul launches himself into the air with lightning crackling around his blade. Dongpal continues holding back the swarms, smashing through waves of insects while ordering everyone to keep the flies away from Hanul. Their attacks work together smoothly, opening a path for our boy to reach the queen herself. As Hanul closes in, the queen suddenly admits that this idiot isn't her child after all. The moment those words leave her mouth, the story slips into a memory from the queen's past. Long before this nightmare begins, the ant kingdom is peaceful. One of the royal ants reports that several workers have fallen ill with an unknown disease. The queen calmly orders everyone to treat the sick as best they can. Soon another report reveals that every infected worker has taken its own life. Hearing this, the queen tells her subjects to bury the dead with dignity. But the mysterious illness continues spreading through the colony. More and more ants become infected, and the bodies begin piling up throughout the kingdom. Another servant warns that at this rate the disease will reach everyone. The queen soon notices something is wrong with her own attendants. One of her children is twitching without responding. Another desperate messenger begs her to abandon the kingdom before it's too late, but she refuses without hesitation. She declares that this is her home and she will never abandon her children, no matter what happens. Right in front of her eyes, that final messenger is suddenly consumed by something unseen. Only then does the real enemy reveal itself. A tiny burrowing fly with glowing red eyes quietly emerges from the carnage. It has been using the ants as hosts all along, spreading through the colony from the inside. Eventually, it reaches the queen herself. Even after losing control of her own body, she continues resisting and refuses to abandon her kingdom until the very end. But the parasite slowly consumes her from within and takes complete control. The memory ends by revealing the horrifying truth. The massive queen standing before them isn't truly alive anymore. The real ruler has long since been taken over, and the tiny burrowing fly is now sitting on top of her ruined head like a puppet master controlling every movement. Using the queen's stolen body, it coldly orders the kingdom to continue serving as if nothing ever happened. Then back in the present, the parasite finally drops the gentle act. It glares at Hanwoo with pure hatred and declares that he has no right to step inside its kingdom. When our boy refuses to back down, the creature completely loses its mind. The queen's giant body lets out a monstrous roar as bright green energy gathers in its mouth, then explodes across the cavern in a massive blast. The attack floods the battlefield, engulfing ants, flies, and everything in its path as the real boss fight finally begins. Dongpao reacts first as the queen unleashes a massive wave of corrosive green energy into the battlefield. The toxic blast rushes toward everyone, and Dongpao jumps in front of the attack. Every muscle in his body strains as he forces the poisonous wave to a stop with pure strength. Then our boy activates Tears of the Ancient. A roaring torrent of crystal-clear water bursts around him, forming a giant vortex that swallows the poison whole. Instead of simply blocking the attack, the rushing water washes away both the toxins and the incoming burrowing flies. Anastasia watches in disbelief as he turns the enemy's own attack against them. Meanwhile, the corrupted queen roars that no one will destroy her kingdom or hurt her children before charging straight at him again, but Dongpao refuses to give an inch and meets her head-on. And while the queen is occupied, our boy quietly sets everything up for his own attack. He activates the Trichion defensive formation, creating a powerful shield around Zen Karuk, who immediately plants himself in front of the swarm and blocks every fly trying to reach Hanwoo. Using the opening, our Sigma slips through the battlefield and gets closer to the queen. Before he can reach her, a giant fly dives straight toward him, but Gano suddenly folds it, ripping that shit apart before it can land a hit. Moments later, Gano's summon time expires and the system sends him back to the monarch's castle. Hanwoo simply thanks him for buying enough time before ordering Karuk to keep the remaining flies away while he deals with the boss. Now comes the stat stacking arc. Our boy activates Lord's Afterimage, adds Illimatis' stats to his own, then immediately uses Vestige Copy to inherit Gano's stats and Raven's Wingbeat. Every buff piles on top of the last until his power skyrockets. The queen notices him preparing and fires another massive stream of corrosive poison straight at him. Hanwoo narrowly dodges the blast and keeps charging without slowing down. The queen desperately screams for him to stay away, but our Chad ignores every warning and leaps high into the air. With every boost active, he knows he can smack her ass in a single jump. As he closes in, the queen's voice suddenly changes. Her anger gives way to sorrow as memories begin flooding back. She remembers leading her colony through endless hardship, searching for a place where her children could finally live in peace. She remembers fighting countless enemies just to build their kingdom from nothing. Then she asks whether anyone could ever understand what her children sacrificed to create that home. Hanwoo doesn't pretend he understands. He admits he never lived through any of it, so he can't claim to know her pain. But he does know one thing. The only thing left he can do is free her. With that, our Sigma brings his sword down. Every buff he stacked combines into one overwhelming strike. Illimatis' strength, Gano's copied power, and Raven's Wingbeat all explode together as his blade cuts straight through the parasite controlling the queen. A blinding flash fills the cavern, and the system confirms the tunnelfly parasite has been destroyed. Our guy really presses Alt F4 on the entire hive, and every burrowing fly loses control and drops from the sky. The sudden silence catches everyone off guard. Dongpao looks around, wondering what just happened, but Anastasia quickly figures it out with her analysis skill. She explains that Hanwoo killed the parasite controlling the queen, which caused every infected fly to shut down at once. Dongpao asks if they should finish the queen too, but Anastasia shakes her head. The parasite had already consumed almost all of the queen's real body. She has been nothing more than a puppet this entire time, and without the parasite, she only has a little time left. So for the first time, the queen speaks with a clear mind. She quietly says the fog has finally lifted, and she can see the world again. Looking across the ruined remains of her kingdom, she accepts that everything has already fallen. But our boy immediately stops her from giving up. He tells her kingdom doesn't have to end here. He offers her a new home inside the monarch's castle, where she and her children can build another kingdom instead of disappearing forever. He asks her to lend her strength to the castle. The queen hesitates before asking if a fallen kingdom can really rise again. She finally accepts the offer and promises that this time she will protect that kingdom instead. The system immediately registers her decision. Sage finishes analyzing the pheromones, while the queen peacefully accepts her new future. As the dungeon ends, rewards begin pouring in. Hanul receives a space development ticket, a premium gacha ticket, 5,000 gold, and a special soulstone becomes available for purchase. Then the biggest reward appears. The system announces that the named monster, Amur Queen Akasha, has officially joined the monarch's castle. The queen awakens inside her new home and quietly looks around at the towering castle. After taking in the view, she promises that this time she will protect this kingdom. After clearing the dungeon, the group steps back through the gate as violet lightning fades behind them. The hunters waiting outside immediately breathe a sigh of relief, happy to see everyone return alive. Ma Dongpal thanks the entire raid team for their hard work, and just as everyone starts relaxing, Sage finishes analyzing the strange change inside the dungeon. Our boy checks the results and learns that the gate didn't mutate naturally. It changed because of something called interference. Sage even finds the source among the dungeon rewards, an unknown item called the Fragment of Interference. According to its description, the fragment can alter monsters and even entire dungeons, creating completely different outcomes. Han-Ul has never heard of an item with powers like this before. He wonders if something like this exists, who is using it, and how many other dungeons have already been affected. With the raid finally over, our Sigma hands one of the valuable drops, a concentrated pheromone pouch, to Ma Dongpal without making a big deal out of it. The guild leader hesitates because the item is expensive, but Hanul insists he deserves it after everything that happened. The conversation almost turns into guild recruitment when Ma Dongpal jokingly points out that Hanul still doesn't belong to any guild, but Anastasia quickly shuts it down before he can start recruiting again. She reminds everyone it's time to head home. While the guild leader laughs that Hanul already promised to spend time with her anyway, Anastasia immediately gets flustered, and our boy wisely decides not to comment. Later, Hanul meets Anastasia at Cafe Olay to finally keep his promise of a fan meeting. A few people recognize the famous Aegis vice leader and quietly wonder who the man sitting across from her is. Our baddie instantly flaunts that he's a fan, but the truth is she's been a fan of his all along. Hanul is completely caught off guard as she laughs over the fact that the streamer she knew as Trash Game is actually Kim Hanul. She compliments his performance during the raid and becomes curious about his strange summons, but Hanul carefully avoids revealing too much, only saying they're part of his unique ability. She also asks why someone with talents like his spent so much time streaming terrible games instead of becoming famous sooner. Hanul simply says he had his reasons and asks her to keep his identity as a streamer secret. Anastasia agrees, but only if he promises another fan meeting in the future. Before they leave, she sincerely thanks him for saving both her guild leader and the entire expedition. Hanul accepts the gratitude with his usual modest attitude and brushes it off like it was nothing. Back home, our guy immediately shifts his attention to the monarch's castle. A new feature unlocks that allows monsters to defend against future waves, so he wastes no time spending gold and a space development ticket to build a new manufacturing room. Once construction finishes, he checks Akasha's profile and discovers one of the strongest abilities he's seen so far. Her kingdom construction skill automatically creates an entire ant colony wherever she's stationed. Simply placing her in a barracks instantly produces 50 soldier ants, 40 cannon ants, and 10 legion commander ants. Han-Ul quickly realizes how broken this is. Since these monsters replenish after every wave, defending the castle just became much easier. Our boy basically unlocks infinite reinforcements. Tower defense players are crying tears of joy right now. While checking the castle, Han-Ul notices something strange sitting beside the Dream Lord's throne. A small pile of bones catches his attention, and after zooming in, he recognizes it as Iramatus's bust. Curious, he taps it through the interface. The system responds by saying he gently pats the bust and immediately increases Iramatus's favorability by 0.1. Another notification explains that reaching 100 favorability will fully awaken Iramatus, although repeatedly spamming interactions can actually reduce affection after a cooldown. Hanul instantly understands the assignment. Apparently, the secret strategy for reviving an ancient lich is regular emotional support, before he can keep experimenting. Another notification appears. This time, the Dream Lord herself requests a conversation. Hanul accepts and discovers the topic is Akasha. She asks whether someone who failed to protect her kingdom truly deserves to be called a lord. The system treats it like an important question and even enables voice input, so Hanul can answer personally. After thinking for a moment, our Sigma gives a simple but sincere response. He says Akasha is absolutely worthy because she fought for her kingdom until the very end and never abandoned her people, even when defeat was certain. To him, that alone makes her a true lord. Akasha quietly thanks him for his honest answer, and the conversation ends. Moments later, the system announces her favor ability has increased by 10 points. Reaching that milestone unlocks one of her abilities as a reward, granting Hanul the skill Lord Swordsmanship, Ordinary Horizontal Slash. Our boy is completely stunned but immediately decides to test it. The glowing golden sword forms in his hand, and he swings it once. A brilliant slash of light cuts through the air with incredible power. Before he can even admire the attack, another system notification suddenly appears, making Hanul stop in his tracks as he realizes the skill may be hiding something even bigger. Golden lightning bursts through the small room as Hanul unleashes a blast of blue and gold mana. The energy shakes the entire house before he quickly pulls it back at the last second. Even though he cancels the skill halfway through, the shockwave alone sends debris flying in every direction. Hanul stares at the mess in complete disbelief. If he had let the attack continue for even one more second, he would have become homeless. He places a hand on the cracked wall and admits he got carried away. Testing a skill this powerful inside his own home was definitely the dumbest idea. Before he can think about it any longer, a new system notification appears, announcing that the manufacturing room has been completed. That immediately grabs his attention. Our boy thought it would take much longer to finish, so he opened the new feature right away to see what it does. The system explains that the manufacturing room can create different consumable items and buildings by using monster materials collected during the defense waves. Hanul checks his inventory and finally understands why he has been collecting so many strange materials. He has 20 wyvern bones, 10 half-dragon scales, 5 half-dragon hearts, 500 units of skeleton powder, and even the undead lich's heart taken from Elamadus. Looking at everything together, our guy finally realizes these aren't random drops. He wants to see what he can make, so Hanul opens the crafting menu. The moment it appears, his eyes widen. Every available recipe is a highest grade item. The list includes poison resistance potions, curse resistance potions, fire resistance potions, and even a highest grade light attribute enhancement scroll. The system also explains that once he selects an item, it will be crafted automatically and can be freely used in the real world. That last part surprises Hanul the most. He reads the description again just to make sure he isn't misunderstanding it before selecting the enhancement scroll. Light gathers inside the room, and moments later, a finished scroll appears before him. Our boy quickly picks it up and examines it from every angle. It looks exactly like the enhancement scroll sold by the Hunter Association. There isn't a single difference. His brain glitches as he realizes the system isn't making fake copies. It's creating the real thing. The first thing our boy does is check the market price. The numbers almost give him spiritual damage. One highest grade light attribute enhancement scroll sells for 100 million won. Highest grade health potions are worth 50 million. Mana potions 40 million. And speed potions 20 million each. Hanul slowly does the math before a huge grin appears on his face. As long as he has enough materials, he can keep making these expensive items forever. He wants to be completely sure, so he crafts the remaining recipes one after another. Bright flashes fill the room as more potions appear. Poison resistance potions, curse resistance potions, and fire resistance potions quickly pile up around him. He compares every single one with the official market listings and confirms they are all genuine highest grade products. Poison resistance potions sell for 30 million won, curse resistance potions for 20 million, and fire resistance potions for 10 million each. Holding one of the bottles in his hand, our boy can barely hide his excitement. Hunters spend fortunes trying to buy these items, but he can make them himself. At that moment, Hanul realizes he isn't just becoming stronger anymore. He's about to become ridiculously rich, and soon enough Wall Street would probably ban our man on sight. But the scene then shifts to a luxurious office across the city. A man wearing a wine-red suit is sitting behind a large desk with a confident smile. He quietly mutters that another fool has walked straight into his trap. A moment later, the office door opens and a masked man wearing sunglasses walks in with a smaller hooded figure following behind him. The guild leader immediately assumes the visitor is Kim Woo-jin, the hunter who contacted them about sponsorship, and the masked man confirms it. Curious about the child beside him, the guild leader asks who the smaller figure is. The visitor explains that it's his son, saying the kid insisted on coming along and asking if he can stay during the meeting. The guild leader laughs and says that's perfectly fine, even joking that the boy must really look up to his father. Once everyone sits down, the guild leader begins explaining how the Black Dog Guild works. He says the guild specializes in sponsorship contracts, giving hunters expedition opportunities, supplies, information, and other support. In return, the guild buys any dungeon materials and items the hunters collect for 15% above the normal market price. An item worth 1 million won elsewhere would sell to them for 1.15 million instead. He confidently asks if everything makes sense. The masked man acts impressed and asks how the guild can make money while paying above market prices and providing so many benefits. The guild leader admits the profit margin is small, which is why every contract includes one important condition. Hunters must trade at least 500 million won worth of items through the guild every month. If they fail to reach that amount, penalties will automatically apply. The masked man calmly asks if an average hunter can really earn that much every month. The guild leader confidently says it's easy as long as hunters join the guild's expeditions. He claims they can't reveal all the details but insists the system works well, and tells the masked man not to worry. Our guy quietly nods before asking one final question. He leans forward and calmly asks if the guild can prepare 1,000,000,000 today. The smile instantly disappears from the guild leader's face. He freezes for a moment because bro thought he was about to scam another rookie. But it's his bad luck that he just invited the final boss into his own office. The guild leader repeats the word 1,000,000,000, then confidently says yes. He explains that the guild has more than enough money to cover that amount, although he becomes curious and asks why Hanul suddenly brought up such a large number. Hanul casually brushes it off, saying he just wanted to make sure the guild could actually afford its promises. He adds that plenty of smaller guilds make big promises but suddenly become broke whenever it's time to pay. He once again reassures Hanul that reaching the required trade amount every month won't be difficult. Towards internally, the leader thinks if a hunter fails to meet the minimum trading requirement, they automatically violate the contract and become the guild's slave for life. Our guy immediately notices the problem. He wonders if the hunter gets such a harsh punishment for breaking the agreement, shouldn't the guild receive the exact same punishment if they fail to pay what they owe? That simple question almost makes the guild leader lose his smile. For a brief second, he quietly complains to himself about how troublesome this customer is. Still, he quickly forces another smile and agrees to add a matching penalty clause for the guild as well. Hanul invites him closer to see the contract, and the leader loses all his brain cells when he sees a magical immolation parchment. Our guy explains that it burns the body part chosen during the contract if either side breaks the agreement. He presents it as proof that both parties can trust each other. The leader carefully checks the updated contract one last time, confirms the penalty now applies equally to both sides, and agrees. Both of them place their hands on the parchment as glowing red symbols spread across its surface, officially sealing the contract. The guild leader secretly smirks to himself, convinced this agreement will eventually ruin Hanul instead. The moment the contract is complete, Hanul immediately tells his hooded companion to bring out the items. Without saying a word, the small figure empties a huge pile of loot onto the table. Potions and scrolls quickly cover the desk, making the guild leader stare in complete surprise. He asks if Hanul personally collected everything. Hanul calmly confirms that he did. He explains that the pile contains 150 resistance potions of different types along with 3 holy scrolls designed for fighting undead monsters, and the items are worth around 1.8 billion won at normal market prices. After adding the guild's promised 15% bonus, the total reaches roughly 2.7 billion won. The guild leader completely freezes. He stares at the mountain of expensive items as if his soul just left his body. There is no way an ordinary B-rank hunter should be carrying loot like this. Still unwilling to believe it, he quickly scans every item using a magic appraisal device. Seconds later, the results appear, confirming every single potion and scroll is genuine and freshly crafted from monster materials. They were not purchased, resold, or obtained through any middleman. Instead of accepting reality, the guild leader immediately changes his story. He switches from friendly salesman to professional gaslighter in 5 seconds, and accuses Hanul of trying to scam the guild. He claims that there is no proof he personally obtained the items. According to him, the guild has no obligation to pay, and Hanul should instead receive the contract penalty. Without another thought, he orders his secretary Taeyong to destroy the contract. He immediately reaches for the magical parchment. The instant his hand touches it, everything goes horribly wrong. The system notification suddenly appears before Hanul, informing him that he has obtained contract nullification Live to 2. At the exact same moment, the contract releases a violent burst of red energy. Instead of affecting Hanul, the magical backlash slams directly into Taeyong. The explosion sends him flying backward across the office as red flames consume his arm. The guild leader can only watch in complete horror while sweat pours down his face. The contract he planned to use against Hanul has completely backfired. Lodging as smoke fills the office, Hanul calmly walks forward without showing even the slightest panic. Looking directly at the terrified guild leader, he quietly gives him 2 choices. He can either pay the full 2.7 billion won immediately, or lose the use of his own body instead.